Well, we are now no longer on recess, where the first item that we have is Agenda Item 6. This is a public hearing on Bill 1420, Human Rights and Civil Liberties, Discriminatory Employment Practices, Workplace Harassment. This bill would define and prohibit certain discriminatory harassment in the workplace, define and prohibit certain sexual harassment in the workplace, and generally amend the law regarding discriminatory employment practices. An HHS committee work session will be scheduled at a later date. Persons wishing to submit additional material for the council's consideration should do so by the end of the business day, June 30th. If you would like to follow the progress of a council bill, the council website has a subscribe function. Go to the council website and use the View Council Records and Legislative Updates link to learn how. Each individual will have 2 minutes to speak. Individuals will be alerted as they approach their 2 minutes and may be disconnected. Also, there may be technical glitches during the public hearing that may need to be addressed by our staff. So thanks in advance for your patience. It is my understanding that we have speakers for this first public hearing, and Ms. Susan Kennedy will be conducting it. Please.
Yes, we do have 4 speakers signed up. However, I don't see their names, but I do see an unidentified number, 1878. Would you happen to be public hearing speaker for number 6?
Sorry, no, this is Jeff Goldman, 1878, and I'm for the Interagency Commission on Homelessness.
Okay, thank you. I do not see any speakers for this particular public hearing, sir. Nobody showed up.
Okay. Well, based on that, we will close the public hearing. And was announced previously, anyone who wishes to submit additional testimony or testimony should do so by the close of business on June the 30th. The next item that we have is agenda item number 7. This is a public hearing on Bill 720, Interagency Commission on Homelessness, Memberships and Duties. This bill would alter the membership of the Interagency Commission on Homelessness after the duties of the commission and generally amend the law regarding the commission. And an HHS committee work session is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, June 25th. Persons wishing to submit additional material for the council's consideration should do so by the end of the business day, June 19th. Are there speakers for this public hearing, Ms. Kennedy? Susan, are there any speakers for this public hearing?
Yes, sir. We have 1 speaker, and that is Jeff Goldman. Mr. Goldman, you may begin.
Be heard before I launch it.
There you go.
Okay,
now
you
we
can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jeff Goldman. I'm the chair of the Montgomery County Interagency Commission on Homelessness, known as the ICH. I thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the proposed legislative changes to the ICH statute. I want to specifically express my gratitude to Councilmember Glass for leading the council's effort on making homelessness a rare, brief, and one-time only experience for all. In the spring of 2019, a subgroup of ICH commissioners came together to draft recommendations to update and revise the existing legislation. Along with myself, the group included Anna Shaw Miller, Public Member Commissioner, Louise Kaufman of the City of Gaithersburg, Susie Sinclair Smith of Montgomery County Coalition for the Homelessness, Shane Rock of Interfaith Works, Amanda Chesney of Catholic Charities, and Amanda Harris from the Department of Health and Human Services. Our goal in that work was to improve the infrastructure of the ICH and its committees so that we would be more effective and better aligned with best practices. In summary, the bill achieves the following. It emphasizes the need to end and prevent homelessness rather than just address the issue. It elevates the approach of housing first from that of a single initiative to a core value of the homeless continuum of care. It allows flexibility in recruitment and selection of members based on the goals and priorities that we have at the time. Balances the overrepresentation of criminal justice and government in general. It increases emphasis on involvement of private organizations like businesses, housing development, and philanthropy. And it establishes a governance committee to guide the work of the commission and its committees. It should be noted that ICH membership is not the only mechanism to participate, and being a member is certainly not the only way to participate in and have influence over the work of the continuum of care and the ICH.
Mr. Goldman, you're at 2 minutes. Mr. Goldman, you're at 2 minutes. Please wrap it up.
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the ICH, and thank you to all the community members, nonprofits, government agencies engaged in the difficult but important work of eradicating homelessness. Thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. We do have one more speaker for this public hearing, Mr. President, and that would be Amanda Harris.
Okay.
Hello. I actually do not have anything more to add to that. I think Jeff did a great job.
Thank you. That would be all the speakers we have, sir.
Thank you. We are going to close this public hearing. And as was announced previously, if you have any additional information or a testimony, please submit it by the end of the business day of June 19th. Next is agenda item number 8. This is a public hearing, a special appropriation to the county's government's FY20 operating budget in the amount of $80 million for the federal coronavirus relief fund non-departmental account. If someone could please mute themselves, there's a background noise. Action is scheduled immediately following this hearing, and I understand there are speakers for this hearing. The one thing that I might suggest to my colleagues is that because we have several speakers for every public hearing as we go through, I think rather than have the actual action item immediately after the public hearing, what I'm going to do is go through all of the public hearings, come back to the action items, so if someone who wants to testify cannot stay, at least we could still hear we certainly want to hear their testimony. So with that, Ms. Kennedy, if you could please introduce the public hearing.
Yes, sir. We have 3 speakers for this public hearing. The first is Mayor Judd Ashman.
Thank you, council members. Once again, appreciate all that you always do and all your leadership of our county's COVID-19 response efforts. You guys have a formal copy of my testimony, and I thank you for your consideration. Since April, the city has waited patiently for information on the county's plan to distribute a portion of the $183 million in federal relief funds and guidance on how to request the funds. Last week, we were encouraged to learn the county plans to open the CARES application portal this week for expenditures that are not eligible for reimbursement under FEMA. However, after reviewing the proposed $80 million special appropriation, we're deeply concerned that the county has not dedicated a specific amount of CARES Act funding to municipalities. While we understand that $49 million will be used to reimburse previous expenditures from the county's general fund for COVID-19 related costs, we find it alarming that the list of allowable expenditures for the remaining $31 million does not expressly include municipalities. Gaithersburg's normal operations, as other municipalities in the county, can continue to be more difficult and costly to operate. Our expenditures have significantly increased, and modifications to our response efforts are made almost daily to mitigate the devastating public health and economic effects on our employees, residents, and small businesses. We provided essential employees with premium pay in recognition of the risks they took in public-facing positions. We've had to make modifications to our buildings, and we had to purchase PPE for use by essential personnel while the stay-at-home order was in effect, and now for our entire workforce as we implement our Phase 1 reopening. Every city department has worked tirelessly to re-envision our programming and create or adjust the delivery of services and resources. Our IT reconfigured and upgraded systems to allow the majority of our staff to telework effectively. Our police department provides almost daily security detail and check-on patrols at local food distribution sites for our most vulnerable families and those experiencing homelessness. And at the same time, critical revenues that keep the city's normal operations functioning have decreased. We expect the 7 point.
Mr. Mayor, we need you to wrap up, please.
Okay, so I'll just finish this sentence. City expects a 7.7% reduction in revenue from amusement and admissions tax, and same for a hotel motel. You guys have the full testimony. I appreciate your consideration, and again, everything you do for our county.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mayor Kate Stewart. Don't see her on the line anymore, so we will move to our next speaker, which would be Mayor Bridget. Oh, are you
sorry,
there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I unmuted myself. I didn't realize I had to do the *6. I'm still here.
Okay, go right ahead. Go right ahead and begin.
Thank you. On behalf of the City Council of Tacoma Park, I thank you for all your the work that you are doing, and we would like to urge the County Council to set aside a portion of the remaining $103 million in unappropriated CARES funding for Montgomery County municipalities. As a small city, we cannot receive federal relief directly under the CARES Act due to federal population restrictions. You may recall that in mid-May, we sent a letter to the County Council and County Executive outlining our COVID-19 response efforts and the mounting physical pressures faced by our community. We emphasized at that time that we've had COVID-19 related expenses related to telework costs and new hazard pay policies for our police department and public work staff. All of these are eligible for CARES reimbursement, but they are not eligible for FEMA public assistance. In recent weeks, we were gratified to hear that the Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security is setting up an online application process and guidelines to allow municipalities to apply for CARES reimbursement for costs not covered by FEMA. We are ready to submit, and we appreciate the opportunity to apply. However, we have yet to see an appropriation committing a specific dollar amount to that process. We were disappointed that today's supporting documentation for the special appropriation resolution makes no mention of reimbursing municipalities. We are concerned that the myriad demands of the Coronavirus Relief Fund will divert funding to other county priorities before the application process can be completed. As we plan our path to recovery, we need to be able to count on full reimbursement. We hope the Council recognizes that Tacoma Park is a high-need area relative to other jurisdictions with a unique combination of social and economic factors and age and race ethnicity distributions. Many of our residents are particularly at risk to adverse impacts from COVID-19. Specifically, we have twice the infection rate as the county as a whole, and to date, we still have been unsuccessful in getting county assistance for a testing site. Our staff have successfully implemented emergency programming for small businesses and vulnerable families and absorbed increased operating costs for COVID-19 by cutting back on resources for regular programming. We view our efforts as an extension of the county strategies to correct inequities rather than a duplication of efforts. With your partnership, we can emerge from this public health crisis on fiscally sustainable footing. And I sent you documentation last night and this morning, and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last speaker for this public hearing is Mayor Bridget Donal Newton.
Good afternoon, Council President Katz and members of the County Council. This gives new meaning to the phrase phoning it in. I'm Bridget Donal Newton, Mayor of the City of Rockville, and I would like to associate myself with the comments of Mayor Ashman and Mayor Stewart. I won't go into our whole testimony, you have it, but I would just like to reiterate the efforts that our municipalities have gone to address the economic and social needs during this crisis. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is what seniors are facing, and the Rockville Senior Center has been out in front from the beginning, creating programs, reaching out, starting a pen pal program, and lots of other things, including collecting food and distributing food on a weekly basis. So I just would reiterate the request for an amendment to address the additional needs that municipalities under the number of 500,000 have met and continue to meet throughout this crisis. The costs that we have had, I'll just support the comments made by the previous speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. This public hearing is now closed, and we're going, as I say before, we're going to come back after the other two public hearings and actually have the action item on them. Next item is item number 9. This is a public hearing, a special appropriation to the county government's FY20 operating budget for the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, support for the COVID-19 response in the amount of $500,000 for a 3R initiative. Action is scheduled immediately following this hearing after the next public hearing, and it is my understanding that we do have speakers for this public hearing.
Yes, Mr. President. Our first speaker would be Marilyn Balcombe.
Hi, Council President Katz, council members, thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts today. My name is Marilyn Balcombe. I'm the president and CEO of the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber. Our chamber supports the $500,000 special appropriation to fund the 3R initiative to help reopen, relaunch, reimagine our business community. There's still some confusion as to what this program actually is. And I appreciate Ben Wu from the Mc Edc briefing the chambers on the program. My written testimony was submitted prior to that briefing, so it's a little bit different. We do support this program. Just as the telework assistance program provided valuable assistance to help businesses work from home throughout the shutdown, this initiative will help restaurants and retailers reopen their doors to the community. We certainly support the cautious reopening of businesses in Montgomery County. We appreciate the safety measures required to open to employees and the general public. However, there's a cost involved in reopening. There's also significant uncertainty as to what the new normal is going to look like. As suggested, a portion of the funding will go to consultants to help reimagining the delivery of services. Having professional guidance and some level of financial support will greatly help our restaurants and retailers get back on their feet. I would caution, however, that the consultants have a realistic understanding of the funding available for implementation of their recommendations. My biggest concern is that money will be spent creating a fabulous plan, but our restaurants and retailers won't have enough money to actually implement the plan. I'm also curious to know which geographic areas will be included in the initiative. Looking at the success of Bethesda and Silver Spring and opening their streeteries, I applaud the urban districts for working with their communities to make that happen. But we need to keep in mind that not all areas have the luxury of an urban district or a municipality, specifically Germantown. My understanding is that each of the regional services centers will be actively engaged to ensure some level of coverage for the entire county, and the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber stands ready to help make that happen. While I have the floor, I just want to take the liberty to also support the $10 million appropriation for the Early Care and Education Initiative. That's critically important for our businesses that support early care and education. And I also want to wholeheartedly thank you.
Ms. Balcombe, we need you to wrap it up, please.
Thanks. I just want to say thank you for your support for the businesses throughout this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker for this public hearing is Ben Wu from Mc Edc.
I don't think Ben's actually going to be a speaker at the public hearing. It's my understanding he'll be available for questions after the public hearing when we take action.
Okay, thank you very much. And that is the case with Sarah Miller as well?
I believe so.
Okay.
It is. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, that is it for the speakers then for this public hearing, sir.
Thank you very much. This public hearing is now closed. And there again, we will have the action item after the next public hearing, will be beginning of it. This is agenda item number 10. This is a public hearing on a special appropriation to the county government's FY20 operating budget for the Early Care and Education non-departmental account, COVID-19 Early Care and Education Initiative, Recovery Fund in the amount of $10 million. Action is scheduled immediately following this hearing, and it's my understanding we do have several speakers.
I can interpret that briefly for the Spanish speakers.
Yes, please.
Esta tiene que ver con una asignación especial al presupuesto operativo del condado para el Fondo de Alivio y Recuperación del COVID-19 en el área de educación temprana. Se trata de 10 millones de reservas generales. Ahora oiremos de los que hacen testimonio y después de eso el Consejo tomará acción en cuanto a temas que lo requieran.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you. The first speaker would be Trisha Swanson, please.
Primero se oye de Trisha Swanson.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Trisha Swanson, and I am Vice President of Government Relations for the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to take a few moments to speak in strong support of the $10 million in emergency funding for Early Care and Education Initiative Recovery Fund, and to applaud the Council, specifically Council members Navarro, Reamer, and Friedson, for their leadership on this initiative. I won't repeat the conversation that you all had on this important initiative last week. Each of you understands very well how this greatly benefits our economy. I just thought it was important to weigh in on behalf of the business community in strong support. Our chamber and its members have long advocated for a strong ECE system, understanding that child care facilities are they themselves a business, but also because of how much this industry impacts our parental workforce. In fact, our chamber held a chamber chat a few weeks ago on the topic of child care and COVID. Over 120 local businesses tuned in, and one theme that emerged was the need for public funding to support this vital industry. So with that in mind, thank you. Thank you for the conversations you're having on this issue, and thank you for the funding for our child care facilities. The Montgomery County Chamber continues to advocate for funding from the state and federal government to match your effort here. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, this is the interpreter. May I interpret that then to Spanish, or is that not needed?
That would be up to the Council President.
No, that's not needed. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker would be Joanne Hurt.
Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Joanne Hurd, Executive Director of Wonders Early Learning and Extended Day, a nonprofit organization with NAYC accredited early care and education and before and after school programs. Thank you, President Katz and the County Council, for working together with the County Executive to put forth the COVID-19 ECEI Recovery Fund. The public health crisis has greatly weakened an already fragile child care sector. It is now evident to many that the child care business model, which is dependent upon parent tuition, is not sustainable. Perhaps the silver lining is that child care is now widely recognized as a public good. This recovery fund is a critical investment in recognition that quality early care and education is vital to the county's youngest children and their families. It recognizes the essential role that ECE workforce plays in our community and economy. And this initial investment clearly states that the county will not reopen and rebuild without a proper ECE sector. The proposed grant will facilitate access to all programs, and in particular, the county's family child care providers, whose growth and sustainability is already a clearly defined goal of the 2019 ECEI initiative. This demonstrates important community commitments to high-quality early learning. The proposed program eligibility should not adversely impact the program's receipt of federal and state funds. These funds are actually loans. The class report stated that loans, particularly the PPP, are not the answer for the child care sector. Quote, the PPP loans certainly have the potential to offer short-term relief to some providers. However, the loans aren't designed to meet the needs and realities of child care providers and simply cannot be the solution for the field, unquote. The PPP was designed to cover short-term staffing costs. It does not mitigate the ECE providers' long-term sustainability issues. These issues are beyond the scope of the county's resources, but recognizing how the county can contribute to the scaffolding of state and federal relief packages is critical to rebuilding the sector. The county must also leverage its cross-sector support of early care and education to advocate for substantial and sustained early care and education investment at the state and federal level.
Ms. Hurt, we
Thank
need you
you
to
very
wrap up,
much.
please. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're
Perfect.
welcome.
Perfect timing. Our next speaker is Cecilia Cruz.
La próxima es Cecilia Cruz.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, you may begin.
Se puede comenzar.
Buenas tardes, miembros del Consejo. Primero quiero agradecer por el ardua labor que desempeñan día a día apelando por el bienestar y seguridad de la comunidad. También agradezco la oportunidad que se me han brindado por testificar y apoyar la propuesta de ley de fondos de alivio y recuperación en el área de educación temprana durante esta pandemia COVID-19. Mi nombre es Cecilia Cruz, vivo en la ciudad de Rockville, Maryland. Soy proveedora de cuidado infantil desde 13 años, brindando cuidado y educación infantil a diferentes familias con diversidad cultural y social. Durante estos meses mi programa ha sido necesariamente cerrado, el cual me ha generado muchos problemas económicos, porque mi familia, mi asistente y mi persona dependen de mis ingresos económicos. Me ha afectado económicamente, ya que no ha habido un ingreso que pueda sostener el pago correspondiente de cada una de las personas antes mencionadas. Atrasé todos los pagos necesarios básicas como el agua, la luz y otros. He solicitado grants y préstamos, pero lo único que he obtenido en estas 10 semanas fue una ayuda de $1,000 para mantener a mi familia. Me da la plena seguridad de que si estos fondos se aprueban, será de mucha ayuda para nuestros programas, para la realización, planificación y desarrollo de un lugar acogedor, seguro, saludable y de buena calidad para el área de educación temprana, y así seguir apoyando y prestando servicios a cada familia que tanto lo necesitan, con la educación de cada uno de sus hijos, en un lugar donde el enfoque sea el bienestar en general de los niños, que serán el futuro del mañana, viendo como principal objetivo excelente desarrollo, aprendizaje y ayudar a los niños que estén listos para ingresar a la escuela. Nuevamente, 1,000 gracias por los concejales, especialmente a concejal Navarro, que siempre ha velado por todos nosotros, y especialmente a las proveedoras de educación temprana.
Thank you. Ms. Lavoy?
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the council. I want to thank you for your hard work that you're doing every day, watching out for the well-being and safety of the community. I also appreciate the opportunity that I have to testify and in support of this bill. My name is Cecilia Cruz. I live in the city of Rockville, Maryland. I'm a child care provider. I've been one for 13 years, providing care and education to various families with a variety of cultural and social backgrounds. During these months, my program has necessarily been shut down and this has caused many problems for me financially, because my family, my assistant, and myself depend on these financial incomes. I've been affected financially since I haven't had an income to sustain the payment of these people that I mentioned, and also I've delayed the payments, the payments for water, utilities, lights, and other things. I've sought grants and loans, but the only thing that I've been able to obtain in these 10 weeks has been a help of $1,000 to help maintain my family. I am sure that if these funds were approved, it would be very helpful to our programs for carrying out, planning, and developing an attractive, safe, healthful, and high-quality place for early education, and to continue to support and provide services to each family that needs it so much for the education of every one of their children, and that the place be a place of welfare for everybody, and for the future. I see as the principal objective the excellent development and learning for those children, so that they're ready to go to school. Again, I want to thank you, each of the members of the council, especially to Councilmember Navarro, that you've always supported us in early childhood education, and for the community, and for all of us providers of early education. Thank you, Cecilia Cruz.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Norma Caceres.
Buenas tardes, miembros del Consejo. Primero quiero agradecer la oportunidad que se me ha brindado para testificar ante ustedes y pedir que se me apruebe la propuesta de ley de Fondo de Recuperación de la Iniciativa para la Atención y Educación Temprana. Mi nombre es Norma Cáceres, vivo en Silver Spring, soy proveedora del cuidado infantil por 13 años. Los niños que tengo a mi cuidado son hijos de padres de bajo ingreso que reciben subsidios para pagar mis servicios. Durante estos meses mi programa estuvo cerrado por causa de la pandemia del COVID-19. Esto me generó grandes problemas económicos porque mi familia depende totalmente de estos ingresos. En mi programa de cuidado de niños trabajamos mi esposo y yo. Este cierre nos afectó económicamente porque tuvimos durante estos meses ningún ingreso salarial y no tenemos otra entrada de dinero. Estoy segura que si estos fondos se aprueban será de mucha ayuda para nosotros las proveedoras de cuidado infantil y así continuaremos trabajando con los padres que necesitan dejar a sus hijos en el programa ya establecido, donde los niños reciben cuidado, educación y todas las herramientas para su aprendizaje. Quiero agradecer a los concejales que promovieron esta noble iniciativa, pero especialmente a la concejal Navarro, que desde hace muchos años nos ha ayudado a nosotros, las proveedoras de nuestros programas de cuidado infantil. Gracias.
Good afternoon, members of the council. I'd like to first to thank you for the opportunity to testify and to ask that you support the bill that you're looking at, Early Care and Education Initiative Recovery Fund. My name is Norma Cáceres, and I live in Silver Spring. For 13 years, I've been providing child care and the children I have under my care are the children of parents of very low incomes who receive subsidies in order to pay for my services. During these months, my program was closed because of the pandemic, and this has caused great financial problems because my family depends totally on this income. In my program of child care, we work, my husband and I work, and this close down has affected us financially because we have no other income during these months. I'm sure that if these funds are approved, it would be of great help for us, the providers of child care. We will therefore be able to continue working with the parents that need to leave their children in programs that are already set up and in which the children receive care, education, and all the tools they need for their learning. I want to thank the members of the council who promoted this splendid initiative because but especially to Councilmember Navarro, who has for such a long time been supporting us, the providers of early childhood education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Wilma Navas.
La próxima es Wilma Navas.
Buenas tardes. ¿Aló? ¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan?
It's fine. Yes, yes. Sí.
Buenas tardes, miembros del Consejo. Gracias por la oportunidad de testificar ante ustedes a favor de la propuesta de ley para los programas de educación temprana. Mi nombre es Wilma Navas. Soy miembro de la Asociación Latina de Cuidado Infantil del Estado de Maryland. Vivo en Silver Spring. En mi programa de cuidado yo tenía 8 niños y con la pandemia bajó a 3 niños a la semana. Para mí eso fue un golpe muy fuerte en mi economía, ya que el pago de la hipoteca de mi casa tenía que hacerlo ante el banco. Las compañías de servicio no dejaron de facturarnos. Debido a que en mi hogar no hay otro ingreso. Muchos de mis padres están trabajando en casa, dejaron de enviarnos a los niños a mi programa y decidieron no pagarme. Yo usé mis ahorros para poder afrontar mis gastos mensuales de tal forma que ahora estoy comenzando de nuevo, buscando nuevas familias que desean buscar cuidado para sus hijos. Algunos de mis padres aún no saben si volverán a utilizar mis servicios. Dentro del grupo de proveedoras latinas hay un 25% de ellas que piensan no abrir ya que tienen miedo a contagiarse y contagiar a miembros de su familia. También otro de los motivos es que dicen que sin ayuda del gobierno ellas no quieren enfrentar solas esta situación económica. Por esta razón, quisiera que esta ley se apruebe para que nosotros tengamos un respiro y poder salir adelante para enfrentar esta crisis económica que estamos viviendo. Muchas gracias, concejales, por introducir esta propuesta que sería de mucha ayuda para nuestros programas. Gracias.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of this bill. My name is Wilma Navas. I'm a member of the Latino Child Care Association of Maryland. I live in Silver Spring. In my program, my care program, I used to have 8 children, but with the pandemic, this went down to 3 children per week. For me, this was a hard blow to my finances because the mortgage payments still have to be paid to the bank. The utilities haven't stopped. They haven't stopped billing us. There's no other income for my household. Many of my parents are working at home, and so they've stopped sending their children to my program, and they've decided not to pay me. Now I'm using my savings to be able to face my monthly expenditures, such that I am now starting again, looking for new families that would like to find the care for their children. And some of my parents still don't know if they will be going back to using my services. Among the group of Latin American providers, 25% of them expect to not open since they're afraid of catching the illness and infecting members of their families. Also, another reason is that they're concerned that without the government support, they are afraid to face alone the financial situation. For this reason, I would like this bill to be approved so that we can have a relief and succeed in facing the economic crisis that we're living through at this time. Again, many thanks, members of the council, for introducing this bill that will be of much help to our programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Johanna Solis.
Johanna Solis, la próxima.
Me?
Johanna Solis.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank
you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Joanna Solis, but I am also speaking on behalf of my mother, Jancy Castro. We both live in the Wheaton area, and we chose to do this beautiful job of being child care providers. I for more than 7 years, and my mother more than 20 years. We have been putting our efforts to educate ourselves to offer a better quality service to the children in our care. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic of COVID-19, we were forced to close, and now we are starting to work, but with fewer children in our care. In our case, we had 8 children before COVID-19. Currently, I have 4 children now, and my mother only 2 children attending child care. We just started working last week. This situation that has caused us many problems because we do not have a budget to maintain our payments for services such as water, electricity, and mortgage payments. It hasn't just affected us to be overwhelmed and not knowing what we will do financially, but also our employees and their families have been affected because it has caused our employees not to have a job too. I have my employee only working a few hours a week now, and my mother with only 2 children under her care cannot keep payments and pay an employee at all. We are totally sad because our expenses are accumulated, and currently with reduced income, we do not know what to do. On behalf of my mother and myself and other providers, we want to ask council members to approve this bill so that we can continue to work with our families, taking care of them and educating our children. Thank you, council members, for caring about your residents. We are blessed to live in this beautiful county. Thank you, council, for such a noble initiative. Thank you, Council Navarro, because I know of the concern you have always had for the providers that serve children in early child care and early education. Thanks for this opportunity and bless you all.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Almaz Getahun. Is Almaz here?
¿Almaz está presente?
Angelic Zaragoza.
Angélica Zaragoza.
Buenas tardes, distinguidos miembros del Consejo del Condado de Montgomery. Gracias por esta oportunidad para expresar mi opinión acerca de la propuesta de ley de fondos de alivio y recuperación en el área de educación temprana durante esta terrible pandemia COVID-19. Mi nombre es Angélica Zaragoza y he sido proveedora de cuidado infantil por más de 8 años. Hace 1 año y medio decidí abrir mi propio programa de cuidado infantil en mi hogar. Me llevó varios meses de preparación, estudio e inversión para cumplir todas las estrictas regulaciones requeridas. Después de recibir mi licencia, comencé a funcionar y todo comenzó los primeros meses muy bien. Incluso participo en el programa de Excel de Maryland, pero desafortunadamente esta pandemia llegó y tuve que cerrar. Estos últimos 3 meses solamente 2 familias me han pagado el 50% del pago regular en forma voluntaria. Estos recursos no son suficientes para hacer pagos de servicios tales como agua, luz y artículos de limpieza y sanitización, ni los fondos que requiero para poder ayudar a mi madre de 84 años en mi país. Asimismo, durante estos 3 meses he tenido que suspender el empleo y salario de mi asistente. Por lo tanto, somos 2 familias directamente afectadas, más de 6 familias impactadas indirectamente, es decir, aquellas familias a las que dejamos de prestar servicios profesionales de educación temprana. Cuando surgió la posibilidad de comenzar con el programa EPCC o del cuidado infantil para el personal esencial, tomé en cuenta el alto riesgo de mi edad y de mi esposo y su historial médico. Entonces decidí mantener mi programa cerrado para estar a salvo y no poner en riesgo a nuestra familia y a las familias que servimos. Y estoy informada de varias compañeras que han cerrado o están considerando cerrar definitivamente por dificultades económicas. Por lo tanto, sinceramente, creo que si estos fondos de alivio y recuperación se aprueban, estos recursos serán de mucha ayuda a programas similares o en circunstancias más difíciles, tanto para las trabajadoras como para las familias a las que proporcionamos servicios de forma que puedan regresar a trabajar durante las etapas 2 y 3 definidas por el Ejecutivo del Condado. Nuestra función en la sociedad también es esencial para la economía que se regularice, crezca y se fortalezca en esta nueva normalidad. Les quiero agradecer una vez más a todos los concejales, pero sobre todo a la concejal Nancy Navarro por su apoyo constante a la educación infantil en nuestro condado, porque ella ha venido haciendo desde hace muchos años. Gracias.
Thank you.
Distinguished members of the Council of Montgomery County, thank you for this opportunity to express my opinion on the funding bill for relief in COVID in the area of early education. My name is Angélica Zaragoza. I've been a child care provider for more than 8 years. A year and a half ago, I decided to open my own program in my home. It took me several months to preparation, study, and investment in order to meet all the strict regulations that were required. After receiving my license, I began to function, and everything went really well for the first few months. I even participated in the program called Excels in Maryland. But unfortunately, this pandemic came, and I had to close. In these last 3 months, only 2 families have paid me 50% of their regular pay, and they've done it voluntarily. These resources are not sufficient to make payments on my utilities, like light or water, buy cleaning supplies and for sanitizing the area, or the funds that I need in order to support my mother, 84-year-old mother living in my country. Therefore, during these 3 months, I've had to stop working. I've had to stop the salary and the work of my assistant. Therefore, we're 2 families that are directly affected, plus the 6 families that are indirectly affected. That is, the families of the children that we would be providing early education to. When the possibility arose to begin to operate as an EPCC or center or child care center for essential personnel, I took into account the high risk because of my own age and that of my husband and his medical history. Therefore, I decided to keep my program closed and in order to stay safe and not put at risk our family or the families that we serve. I'm informed that various of my colleagues in this business have closed and are considering closing permanently because of their financial difficulties. Therefore, I sincerely believe that if these funds of support and relief and recuperation are approved, these resources will give a lot of help to programs that are similar or in difficult or in even more difficult circumstances, both for the workers as well as for the families that we support, that we provide services to, such that they can return to work during the phases 2 and 3 as defined by the county executive. Our function in this society is essential so that the economy can get back on a regular footing, grow, and become strong in the new normal. I thank you again to all of you council members, and especially for Council Member Nancy Navarro for your consistent support to early education in our county that you've been doing for many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, that is all the speakers for this public hearing. You're muted.
Thank you very much. We're going to close this public hearing. This public hearing is now closed. It is my understanding that we had a technical glitch, and I believe it was for public hearing item number 9. Is that correct, Ms. Kennedy?
Yes, that's correct. Ms. Jane Redeker is on the line to speak to that public hearing.
So I'm going to reopen item number 9's public hearing. It is now reopened so that we can hear Ms. Redeker's testimony, and we apologize to Ms. Redeker. Please.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, members of the Council, for giving me the opportunity to testify, and thank you for coming back to me. The Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce appreciates the Council's efforts to support businesses as they navigate through the reopening of our economy. The 3R initiative is an interesting program designed to help some of the many struggling businesses in our county. In my limited time, I'd like to share a few concerns about the program and offer another idea. 1, the dollars available will be sufficient to help only a very few businesses. So we're somewhat concerned that the county's regional service directors will be picking winners and losers as they identify these target areas. 2, because of this, transparency will be critical. It will be incumbent upon the regional service directors and the consultant to have very specific criteria for choosing these areas and to explain why they were picked. 3, please don't forget the retail sector. The focus seems to have been on restaurants, which have indeed been severely affected by the shutdown. But this program must also support retail in the target areas, something that has not been top of mind in a few of the current efforts to create street dining areas. 4, the consultant's recommendations for improvements must be affordable. My colleague Marilyn Balcom mentioned this. Since there are likely to be a large number of individual businesses within a target area, the dollars available per business will be small. But if the program is to succeed, they will need to be sufficient to cover the cost of the recommendation. It is for these reasons that we strongly urge Council to find another way to implement a more far-reaching initiative that would be in addition to this. For example, one that would provide financial support to help businesses comply with the requirements of reopening. The cost of providing PPE, signage, protective dividers, cleaning supplies, and additional staff to do more frequent cleaning are already adding to company costs. With businesses only partially reopening, these costs eat up any potential for profit. A reopening resources grant program administered by Mc Edc, similar to the telework program, which worked very much efficiently and very fairly, would go a long way to bring back our economy and keep our businesses in business. And I thank you for the opportunity to present these thoughts, and I thank you for bringing me back to testify.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This public hearing, item number 9, is now closed for a second time. Thank you, Jane. I appreciate it, and thanks for understanding the technical glitches that we all have. Okay, so all of the public hearings are now closed. We're now going to go back because item number 8, item number 9, and item number 10 were all action items in addition to being a public hearing. The first item, item number 8, is the special appropriation for the government's FY operating budget in the amount of $80 million for the federal coronavirus relief fund. First thing we're going to need is a motion and then a second, and then we need to have some discussion, please. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Been moved by Councilmember Reamer, seconded by Council Vice President Hubbard. Okay. We obviously heard from the municipalities about, I guess, basically a set aside for this money. I do know that what I have heard is that in Prince George's County, I believe that they did that. I believe, in fact, they might have even given some money directly either to the municipalities like the federal government gave to Montgomery County. They gave the money, the $183 million, and said, spend this. You have to spend it properly, but you spend it that way. Or they set aside a series of money. Mr. Manolino, do you know? And I see his name on the listing here. Are you familiar with that at all?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not.
But before you begin, let me wish you a happy birthday. I know that you would know there's no other place you'd rather be than in a public hearing for Montgomery County for your birthday.
Yes, and I was promised a Zoom group hug at the end of the event to celebrate my birthday.
All right, well, not every promise is fulfilled, but anyhow, go ahead, yeah.
So thank you, Councilmember Rice, for actually for sending me that virtual hug. So I know Prince George's has allocated the money towards a portion of it towards the municipalities, a sizable number. I know they have far more municipalities that deliver a far greater range of services than most of our municipalities do. I don't know if they just, my understanding is they sent the money by a formula by population to each one of the jurisdictions, but I don't know if they're holding on to it and getting paying the bills as they come in, but they did take a formulaic approach that was in the $20 million range. And if my memory serves me properly, I believe that that's actually a significant sum because I think they have 27 municipalities. I believe that's correct. Yes, they have the highest number. I know they have the highest number in
the state. But anyhow, there again, I think it is a conversation whether or not it's money that goes directly to the municipalities, whether it is money that we carve out to the mayors, and I believe it was Mayor, I don't remember which mayor said it, I believe it was Mayor Stewart, but it could have been one of the other mayors, that they are concerned that we might spend this money in a different way and not be able to have the funding to reimburse them for things that they have done that the county would have done if the municipalities were not in existence. So I think that needs to be a conversation. I'm in favor of setting aside or fencing off or whatever the right term would be for the municipalities. Not that I don't know that we would give them directly, give the funds up front, but I do believe we should certainly say that if they spend this money, that we would reimburse them and that we don't run out of money. I'd like to hear other people's comments on it, please. Council, somebody jumping in here? Okay, hold on. Marlene Michelson, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, I just wanted to give a little bit of framework for what you have before you, and I'll address the municipality question as well. What this special appropriation does is it reimburses money that came from the general fund that was spent on COVID-related expenses. And it's very important that we do that before the end of the fiscal year, because that's going to reestablish some of our reserves that were used for this purpose. It then lists a number of items which the county executive believed was sort of technical in nature and did not require a new policy debate by the council because you've already considered it. So as a good example, it lists things like testing or contract tracing or money to clinics, because you've debated it and they thought that you would be comfortable if money was allocated to those purposes in an administrative manner. And they set $30 million aside for that. Then they assumed that anything else that would have a policy debate would come back to the council. So initially there was $100 million remaining. And a great example is how much money should be allocated for municipalities. This means they need to come back to the council and say, we've thought about it, here's how we want to handle it. And so what they were trying to do was have an expedited way, again, to allocate the money to refund reserves, and for things that they thought could easily move forward, the remaining money is being held. And there's an important correction I need to make to that. At the time I wrote my memo, there was approximately $100 million remaining. I'm going to recommend that the supplemental appropriations for child care, which you will be discussing next, and also the one for food security, which was introduced today, that those also be funded by this part of this $100 million pot of money. So we would change the source of funding from general fund reserves to federal grant to make sure that the CRF, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, could be used for these purposes. Another issue that I think we need to discuss, but we can come back to after you had your introductory conversation, is how the council will play a role in determining what the future expenditures should be. And the CAO sent the council president, I know he forwarded to council members, a suggestion on a process going forward for future expenditures. So before you finish your discussion on that, I think you may want to come back to that issue as well. And finally, just for the municipalities, on the municipalities, they are part of that remaining pot of money. The county executive will have to come back with a supplemental to reimburse them, and obviously that provides the council the opportunity to weigh in and discuss whether or not you believe the amount is appropriate, not appropriate, should be more or less. So they will be coming back to you for that purpose. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the reminder, because we do need to discuss how we're going to be doing the funding in general, not just for this topic, but all topics. I mean, so we do need to have that as part of the conversation. Councilmember Friedson, please.
Thank you. A couple points. First and foremost, happy birthday to Rich Madalino. Great to be here with you. I somewhere I'll find a candle for you. Here you go. Happy birthday. Can you see it?
No. There it is.
There you go. Well, happy birthday. We'll blow it out later. A couple things. One, I share the view on the municipalities. Just wanted to note, when we originally, 5 weeks ago, were briefed on this, I raised this issue. District 1 has a lot of municipalities in it, the largest number of any of the districts in Montgomery County by far. And we talked about whatever we move forward with to make sure we're communicating with them. They fully understand the process. I know subsequent conversations have taken place with the council president and vice president with some of the larger municipalities subsequent to that. Clearly, we haven't quite gotten there, so I hope that we can improve upon that. Our municipal partners are critical. I share the view of the council president that we should have a fund, or to indicate to our municipal partners that we are going to be reimbursing. I understand it would be markedly less than Prince George's County for a number of reasons that Director Madalino mentioned, not least of which is we have very few municipalities with the span of powers like policing and other functions, public works that the Prince George's County municipalities tend to have. We do have some, but most we have that don't. That obviously makes a big difference of what's reimbursable. So there are differences, but having nothing is not, I think the right response. I echo that. I just want to reiterate what Ms. Michelson just said. The executive branch cannot reimburse the municipalities as it currently stands unless you come back to the council as things currently stand, which is, I think, it sounds like to me, and has continued to be, the concern that has been raised by the municipalities of the timing and the delay in the absence of that being an approved expenditure and having a specific amount, or even that being part of the $80 million appropriation. The executive branch is not provided the authority to reimburse for these expenses to the municipalities until you come back to the council. Is that correct?
Mr. Madalena, are you?
Yes.
Yes, I may have a slightly different view of looking at when you look at the resolution of the different items that are included in it. Part of it is like reimbursing for cleaning of a public facility. I don't think that public facility just means a public facility controlled by the Montgomery County government, as opposed to also using that as cleaning supplies for the Rockville Senior Center, or a public facility in Gaithersburg, or Chevy Chase Village that needs to be cleaned. So there, to me, I think it's broad enough that we can start reimbursing some of the municipalities. It would be great to start getting, and I think you heard the mayor's talk about how we've created a portal for them to submit reimbursement requests in, and then that would give us a chance to see exactly how much money they are spending, what types of things they're spending on, and then come back to you in a more informed way with, if that's your desire, a special appropriation for this purpose that is grounded in some sort of experience, as opposed to a shot in the dark and saying, and just picking a number and putting it out there, but actually having some basis for us to fix a number to it, for you all to then appropriate with some degree of confidence that that's what we're going to spend. And not taking money, not having money sit in that pot because we overestimate how much we need from municipalities, that then prevents it from being spent on some other worthy expenditure that could be funded out of the CRF.
Right, but we can always move things around subsequent to it. I mean, we have appropriations already that are not going to reach the full amounts that were appropriated. I imagine you'll be coming back to repurpose some of that funding to more appropriate, more timely needs within the COVID response. So I wouldn't see this any differently. Clearly the municipal partners are not, don't feel like it's working, don't feel like they've been communicated with, don't feel comfortable with the process we've set forward. So I think we do need to make a change to how we do that. It seems like we're talking about two different things. On the one hand, you're saying that this is so broad that you could reimburse just about anybody for this. That would be beyond how I personally read it. I'd like to get some guidance on that, because based off of that, the funding of PPP, the executive branch could set up a program to reimburse anybody to buy PPP equipment without notifying the council. And to me, that would be a different type of expenditure than what has been approved. I'm not saying that I necessarily would be opposed to that. I actually think there could be some merit to that, but that would be different than how I had at least read the $80 million expenditure and what the purpose of this was. The other thing that you said, which is more along the lines of what I had anticipated and how it has been framed up to this point, is you want to be able to continue to fund programs and funds that we've already been funding, like testing and tracing, things that we've already discussed, things that we want funded, PPE for the county government, et cetera, so that we can keep up in a time of crisis with appropriate reporting in a timely manner. And for additional funding, you would be coming back to us with supplemental appropriations from this account. But those are two very different things. I just think it would be helpful to get a clarification.
But if the city of Tacoma Park, for example, is buying PPE for their police department, and they want a reimbursement for that from the CRF. Like, we're going to use the CRF dollars to pay for our police department's purchase of PPE. I think there's broad enough authority within the resolution for us to do that without coming back with a specific appropriation for a specific special appropriation for municipalities that would include, for example, reimbursing them for PPE. So that's where I'm saying that the municipal governments, in our relationship with the municipal governments, the reading of the resolution to me is broad enough to give us that ability to do those transfers to the municipal governments for the same types of services we are providing as a government.
Okay, well, my view is you should pick an approach, and we should be clear and consistent and transparent and accountable about it. It seems like we maybe could do this, we might be able to do that, and I think the easiest thing to do would say we've created this in a broad enough way that we're going to fund the municipal governments through the appropriation, and we have authority within the $80 million as it stands, and we're currently taking it, and we're communicating with them and explaining to them how that process is going to work, and that's part of the regular reporting process that we've talked about that the council will receive. Or we're going to come back with a separate appropriation. Today, we're about to approve this, and we've heard a little bit of both. We think we might be able to do this, but we could also do that. We haven't really decided. And I just think that we have to be more clear about it. And I think that's what you're hearing, some of the concerns from the municipal partners that we've consistently heard throughout this process is related to that. And I think it's a broader issue, as well. So I let's pick today before we approve it. You tell us what the approach is going to be, and then everybody will be on the same page.
Yeah, if I can just suggest a sort of a technical correction that may address your concern on page 5 of the resolution. It says funds in the COVID NDA may be used to pay for any expenditure, and then it lists the expenditures. It can say for any county or municipal expenditure. Still limits the municipal expenditures to only these categories that, once again, are very clear, don't require an ongoing policy debate, but at least it makes clear Mr. Madaleno's comment that he believed these funds could be used for these purposes.
As long as the intention from the executive branch is to reimburse the municipal governments out of this appropriation, then I would move to make the change as recommended by staff.
Second.
It is.
Okay, great. Well, I want to raise that. I want a couple last points, and then I'll move on. One, I think we do definitely need to have a conversation about the process, side of this for moving forward. We're down to, if we approve what has been proposed today, 80.
Okay. Is there going to be an answer?
I didn't.
Andrew's frozen.
I think he's frozen.
No.
And now he's disappeared.
Andrew, are you back?
There he is.
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think there's definitely needs to be a discussion today or very soon about the process for moving forward. We're down to $80 million if we approve the change to come out of this account of the appropriations from today, as was noted, through December 31st. And then I just want to, the last point of this whole structure is set up for the idea that the legislative branch moves too slowly and the executive branch can move quickly. That has not proven to be the case at any point during this crisis. And I just wanted to point that out. Our issue has been that the council has moved very quickly to appropriate funds and has outpaced the ability of the executive branch to come close to catching up to implement and put in place and appropriate these programs and processes desired and needed to keep up with the COVID response as we see it. And so while I believe that this is a thoughtful and reasonable approach, it is an interesting dynamic that I just wanted to note that in a normal environment where the executive branch moves swiftly and quickly and the more deliberative legislative branch moves slowly, this would be absolutely required. In this current crisis that has not proven to be the case. That may change moving forward, and I am hopeful that by doing this, we get more urgency in some of the implementation of the appropriations of these funds, because we know the desperate need out there of our residents to get through this crisis. And setting up programs does not solve problems. Making sure that the programs actually get to the people who need it does. And so we need to make sure that happens. And so I just wanted to raise that broad point, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
All right. So, and I missed it. Councilmember Friedson, you made a motion. Was that correct?
Yeah. The motion is to add the language county and municipal. Maybe staff can reiterate what the motion was, and I believe it was seconded by Mr. Hucker, President Hucker.
Yes, if you turn to page 5 of the resolution, which is attached, towards the end of the page, there's a paragraph that begins, funds in the COVID NDA may be used to pay for any expenditure. And before the word expenditure, it could say any county or municipal expenditure, and then continue that is eligible under the CARES Act related to the following. And then it lists the specific items that can be funded.
Okay. It was moved and seconded, though I have several people that want to speak. Does anyone want to speak on this motion? No? All right. So it's been moved by Councilmember Friedson and seconded by Vice President Hucker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Friedson, had you finished your?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm finished for now.
Good. Thank you. I didn't mean good. Anyhow, Vice President Hucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to add my voice to what you said earlier, Mr. President, about the need to reimburse the municipalities. You and I were on a call at their request with the mayors of the 3 largest municipalities a few weeks ago. I think I can fairly speak for you as well, that we both heard loud and clear about the important work that they're doing to address both the public health crisis and the economic crisis. I know they're providing critical services to the most vulnerable residents that we have. I could really tell the difference in the value of municipal services, in particular when I moved from the state assembly to the county, because when I was at the state, I heard from Tacoma Park residents disproportionately about all kinds of state-based priorities. And now I probably hear from them less proportionally than the rest of my district, because the city council does such a good job of delivering local government services at a very sort of close to the ground level that otherwise would be delivered by the county government. They also, all 3 of the big municipalities, I know it's true of our other municipalities as well, represent some of our lowest income and most diverse communities in many cases. I can just tell you what I know more about Tacoma Park than elsewhere. Tacoma Park, 47% tenants. It's disproportionately 56% people of color, 31% foreign born, and disproportionately seniors that are vulnerable to the epidemic. So they're close to the ground. They're providing critical services that we're not providing, and otherwise we would have to, for many of the residents that are the most affected. And they've really gone through the whole gamut. They are providing rental assistance, business grants to about a quarter of their businesses in Montgomery County, which is a higher percentage than we've been able to reach. They have many more small businesses on a long waiting list because the need is so great. And they've been even providing PPE and workforce development as well. Tacoma Park, I think contrary maybe to some people's perception, has a higher unemployment rate than the rest of Montgomery County, and a higher infection rate. And it's, as I mentioned, the city government is so close to the ground dealing with these folks every day. So I favor the assistance. I favor the reimbursement model that was described. I'm glad we just passed that amendment. And as a related background issue, I just want to raise everyone's attention, especially those who may not hear about it as often as some of us do, that all our municipalities expected some relief on the tax duplication issue this year. They've waited for it for years. There have been task forces looking at this. This was the first year the county executive was going to be comfortable moving forward to change the formula. And then that was all sort of put on hold, like many things were, because of the emergence of the COVID pandemic and our decision to pass a same services budget. And of course, the change to the tax duplication formula doesn't fit into a same services budget. So while they were expecting relief finally this year, they didn't get it in the FY20 budget. And yet they're providing these services that they didn't expect to be providing. So I think it's only fair and reasonable that we would be providing this relief through a reimbursement model at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And while people are chatting, we also please remember that we were going to be discussing what Ms. Michelson brought up about how we should be handling and working with the county executive side on the funding going forward. Councilmember Albernaz, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just wanted to, as my colleagues have just done so eloquently, put in a plug for our municipalities. They have been a key partner in addressing the pandemic on many levels. From a public health standpoint, they have put up food distribution hubs. They have worked directly with constituents to direct them to testing and needed care. And as we know, our municipalities have a unique relationship and partnership with their constituents. And that relationship and partnership, particularly as it relates to our minority populations and immigrant populations, is key at this time. And they have a much better connection and relationship with a large percentage of our constituents. And they have also stepped forward to assist with small mini grants, addressing the unique needs of our small business community, helping them to navigate through this and the relief moving forward. And as always, they have stepped up in very significant ways. And so I want to express my appreciation to all of our municipalities and acknowledge moving forward that we have to be more direct and strategic in how we work collaboratively with them if, God forbid, there is another wave of the pandemic, so that we are all in the best possible position to respond. And I think that will be a key component, bringing them in earlier. Many lessons learned throughout this entire process, but I think that's an important one, is making sure key stakeholders like our municipalities are at the table as decisions are made. So I wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation to all of them and acknowledge that they have been a critical partner in the county's overall response to the pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad that the language has been included. I think it is an important component. And obviously, we're all kind of going through all of this and navigating all of this in real time. So I'm really glad that we were able to incorporate this. I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about the process. As you know, I think it was June 12th, there was an exchange regarding the process. And I just want to share that, my feedback, it's related to what Councilmember Friedson mentioned. I think that from the very beginning, the council has, really hit the ground running in responding to the many urgent needs that the community has presented. And I think we have been diligent in our work, and we have responded in real time. We've been pretty nimble. And so I think that it is important to have a process that continues, I think, that spirit. And I don't know why we have to create a, cumbersome process and a convoluted process when I think it's very simple. We have central office staff that has certain portfolios, certain policy portfolios. Every time we want to introduce a bill or we want to maybe introduce a special appropriation, we know who to reach, and who to engage for any technical assistance. So it seems to me that, we know the categories are. So Ms. Michelson can work with our central office staff to make sure that they have assignments for these different categories. And if a council member wants to introduce a special appropriation, then, Ms. Michelson, I plan to introduce this special appropriation. It gets vetted through that particular person, that particular analyst, who can then quickly check with the administration to see if there's something already in the works or not, and how we can quickly do this. Conversely, the administration can do the same thing. I mean, we just recently had an example with our early care and education special appropriation, where we have been working on something for a while. The executive then introduced something, and we very quickly, I mean, literally throughout the weekend, merged those two proposals into, I think, a very seamless, unified proposal. But I think it's a very simple process. I think that we should just, formalize it just a little bit more in terms of knowing which analyst on our side is assigned to which category, which policy area, and continue to work, collaboratively versus sending it over there to see if it fits, and it doesn't fit, and within a week, then we will hear it back. I don't feel comfortable with that. I think that we can do this, very, very nicely by just knowing then who is assigned to what particular area. So I just wanted to propose that to my colleagues as an option, and would love to hear some of the feedback as well. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate that, but part of my concern has been that, especially during this COVID crisis, that everything, for instance, on a Thursday afternoon, our agenda comes out, and by Friday morning, somebody else comes in and says, you know what, I think we should have a different we need an additional appropriation. Everything becomes an emergency. And in some cases, they are emergencies. I mean, if nobody wants anybody to be without food, or to be without shelter, or to be all of the things that we've been allocating these funds for. However, at that point, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, our staff was not aware of, or was barely aware of, this suggestion about this idea. I'm not talking about food, but I'm talking about the other ones. So everything became last minute. Our staff was not in the loop as quickly as they should be, and the county executive side, in many cases, we didn't know what they were working on. They didn't know what we were working on. There's been a lack of good communication. So I do believe we need something, and whether it's the filter through central staff, whatever it is, but we should be giving ourselves, our central staff, the necessary time so that they can vet it. Having said all that, we also didn't have committees, and none of this was going through committees. Everything was committee of the whole, and that in itself is another situation, another difficulty. So I do think that we do need something, and that's why we decided we were going to have the dialogue today. I do think there needs to be something so that everyone is clear on what money we are spending and what programs are needed, and whether or not the amount of money that's being suggested really is the amount of money that is going to be enough to help out the situation. If we provide $1 million, let's make up just a figure. If we provide $1 million and we need $10 million for that issue, as much as $1 million is a lot of money, it's not the amount of money that's needed to solve the problem that we're looking at. And that's why we need our central staff and people who are the experts on the topic to help us determine what the real figure should be. And we need to coordinate it with the county executive side to make certain that we are working together rather than not communicating as best we should. That's my opinion.
Right. I think that's exactly what I just described. What I just described is a process where Ms. Michelson works with our analysts who already have particular portfolios in the areas that we know are in the category for this money, right? So it's pretty straightforward. And so there needs to be some sort of discipline, and you as council president, of course, you establish that if a council member wants to introduce a special resolution, has already the language, which, I know that I can speak for myself, but when I want a special appropriation, I turn to whoever is the analyst that puts together the language. I don't draft it myself. So I think if there's a process where, hey, Ms. Michelson, I've identified this need. We think we need more money for this and the other. This is then deputized to Ms. McMillan or somebody, and that analyst then has the task of not only developing the language, but checking all those facts. Is this the right amount? Is this the right process? hey, executive staff, are you guys working on something similar or not? And then we proceed. So it's not that different. I mean, obviously, as you described, Mr. President, we have been working under unprecedented schemes, I guess, if you will, without committees and everything. So, but our usual process, this is how we usually do it. So I don't think it's any different than our regular process. And again, the most important thing is to make sure, as you said, everything is checked in terms of, is this the right mix? This is the right formula, whatever it is. And is there duplication of efforts? If there are, let's check them both, like we did with the child care special appropriation, and come up with a really robust. So again, I don't think it's any different than what you just described. I think it follows our usual process.
Well, and I think we are in agreement on that. I can't say that everyone has done it exactly the way everybody else has done it. There are some have gone faster, some have gone slower. Before I forget, let me just mention this, please. I believe that we were supposed to have interviews starting at 1:45 today for the planning board. It is now past 3 o'clock, and we had 4 people we were going to interview. I'm going to suggest that we not have the interviews today for the planning board. We need to give them their fair and reasonable time for an interview. That it's my understanding that we would be able to do it on July the 7th to do the interviews, and obviously it would take a priority on that day. So if it meets with my colleagues' approval, I'm going to ask the people who are waiting to be interviewed today that they please come back on July the 7th. Unless there's objection, I don't see anybody jumping up and down. Okay, if we can please tell the people, or I guess they could hear me, that we will be interviewing them on July 7th rather than today, and we sincerely apologize. Today has just been one of those days, and we still have several items to get to, all of which are extremely important discussions, as is their interview. Okay, having said that, Council Member Reamer.
Thanks. So my overall point, similar to my colleagues, I really I'm unclear on how much funding remains and what key priorities, we will have for that funding. So we've got to get into that. I'm anticipating we're going to need a substantial allotment of funding for housing issues. But, it's just, we're not ready yet. So, but I have no idea if there's funding, frankly, how close are we to, well, I've got to put something forward, whether or not it's ready, because if I don't, it will all be gone. I think we probably all feel that right now. So, we've got to rationalize this and help each other understand what these trade-offs are so that we can make good decisions. That, I think, is the most important thing from my perspective that we need to do in the short term. Vetting specific ideas through an executive branch process is, sort of secondary to, we need to have an overall plan. Whether we want to agree to have our ideas run through an executive branch process doesn't really matter to the bigger picture question of how much funding is available and what are the key priorities. That's the important thing. So I just think we've got to go through that process. I think a series of small. Well, Marlene, what is your recommendation for how we will figure that out?
So the remaining funding, assuming that the $20 million is approved by the council for both the child care and the food security, the remaining funding left would be $80 million. And what the executive has been sharing with you has been sort of a working draft of an allocation scheme of how the remaining funding would be used. Because it's constantly changing, it's not something that they've put out as part of this public documentation because they don't want to create expectations. But that is sort of their, what they've shared with the council, and council members do have this, is an indication of how they see the money being allocated. And I know they welcome your input as to how that can change.
We need to go through that. I mean, I don't think it's satisfactory for us to all just get an email in our inbox and then it's up to each of us to interpret that, or like we got to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will share that they did present it once to the council before. I know they'd be happy to do that again to answer any questions you have and to make sure it's clear.
Well, I suggest that. Sure, is that Director Madaleno? Yeah.
Yes. If I may, and I don't mean to be splitting hairs about our wording, we will have, if you take the 80 million plus the other 20 million that Ms. Michelson has spoken about, we will have appropriated $100 million. We're nowhere close to having spent $100 million. So I just want to be very clear that it's not like, oh my God, we only have $80 million left. We will have just appropriated 100 of the 183. We still, we're assuming we have promised that we will go after FEMA reimbursements first. We will go after other federal funds first. So testing, I think we all agree, testing and contact tracing, hugely important. We have guesstimates for the amount of money we're going to spend on those two things. The federal government might wind up paying for it all. The state might wind up paying for a fair amount of it. So that would give us flexibility when we come back in July, or come back in September, and rethink the use of the money and create other either new specific policy decisions like Ms. Michelson has spoken about, or come back to you for increases in those policy areas, like the special appropriation that you've already passed about rental housing, coming back and saying, okay, we need a dramatically larger number for that. But I would just reiterate that we still have an enormous amount of flexibility with these dollars, and it's not like these are the only dollars we have in response. There are other federal dollars. Who knows what the state is going to do with their allocation, because they haven't done their distribution or budgeted their allocation of funds, although the state constitution gives the governor far more authority to actually just spend federal funds without the General Assembly's approval. And then we have our own reserves. We have our own budget that we can use with your appropriation. So I think we are in a strong position to respond to the needs that come up. I think this is providing us a framework for moving forward, and then the discussion that we've been having about just keeping both sides, both the council and the executive branches, updated as to what are the new plans in work, so we're not stepping on each other, because we're both working very hard to respond to the needs of the community.
Okay, thank you. I think it would be useful for us to have small group meetings to go through this. I need to be able to look at something and ask a council staffer some questions and have feedback. It's just helpful. And we don't get a chance to do it on this particular element of it, except for in this freewheeling, full council environment, which we're actually not. We're not getting a presentation right now about the allocation of $180 million. So I think we need to do that, just so we're all better informed. On the specific issue with municipalities, I do agree we need to share this funding. I mean, this is kind of like manna from heaven. And it wouldn't be right for us to say, well, we're sorry, municipalities, the population cutoff was 500,000, and so that's the way it's going to be. But I like the approach of reimbursing expenditures. The edit that we just made provides pretty clear guidance as to what expenditures are available. I understand that there's an application for the municipalities. It's not yet up. When what's the timing, Director Madaleno?
I thought it was up. If it's not up, it will be by my understanding, by the end of the week.
So it's imminent.
I will double check with Dr. Stoddard.
Okay. Great. Thank you. That's it. Sydney, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. Good conversations, and I too just want to give my word of appreciation to the municipalities that, every time we at the county talk about being closest to the people and closest to the residents, there is one level that is closer, and it is our municipalities. And I've had conversations with a lot of the municipal leaders, particularly about this. And Mr. Madaleno, Director Madaleno, I have just a question for you, because there appears to be some interpretation or understanding that the hesitancy to provide the municipalities with support, it might involve some perception that there is extra resources going to the municipalities because the counties might have provided services, and then the municipalities will provide maybe some of the similar services or an additional level of services. And the leadership of many of the municipalities view this as one of the reasons that the executive isn't being more cooperative in their opinion. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, as you know, the county executive was a municipal official before joining the county council. He has been very vocal about the need to fix the revenue sharing formula that Councilmember Hucker discussed a few minutes ago, and did propose a significant increase in aid to municipalities in his FY21 budget, which we all know why that did not wind up meeting the criteria of the continuity of services budget. So he is more than open to having us reimburse the county, the municipal governments for the services that they are providing, especially those services that relieve us of an obligation that otherwise we would be providing. We have had some internal conversations about if one of the municipalities launches its own program to help businesses in that municipality, should that come out of these dollars that have been given to fund assistance across the county? And because you're a business that happens to be located in one of those municipalities that is offering that benefit, should in essence the rest of the county subsidize that opportunity when all the other businesses located outside of the municipality would not have access to those dollars? So, that there is an interesting fairness issue that I think even some of you have grappled with in trying to figure out whether or not all of the things that a municipality is doing to respond to the current crisis, if all of those items are actually eligible for reimbursement.
So I will interpret what you just said as a tacit yes, that some of the concerns that they have or the sentiment that they feel is true. And it goes part and parcel with the comments you made and that Councilmember Hucker made absolutely about tax duplication. I mean, in essence, it's all part of that same conversation. And so, yes, while I was, it didn't come before us because of the budget situation we're in, but I was supportive of the tax duplication remedy that I know you and the municipal leaders had worked on very hard for a very long time to come up with. But then it seems like it's kind of rearing its ugly head again and manifest itself in this way. And so what I'm hoping is that there are just open rules for engagement, and that's been the sentiment that my colleagues have been sharing, that everybody knows, at least to some level of certainty, that as a municipality, if they expend some money to help our residents, and it's important to say it that way because they're all our residents, that they will receive some reimbursement for that level of support. I'm not going to belabor this point because you expressed it in the way you did, but I understood what you were saying. And then so my last question, and again, this is a comment that others have made. There's $100 million remaining from this 183. We have in the last few weeks encountered at least one or two situations where the council was working on some appropriations, and lo and behold, we find that the executive is working on some appropriation on the exact same thing. So would now be a fair time for you to maybe share with us some thoughts that the executive has and OMB has on how you plan on spending some of the remaining $100 million?
Well, I think the council. Okay. Well, no. I don't want to step on what Ms. Michelson has already said about you have the $10.5 million appropriation pending that was introduced today to go towards food insecurity and addressing the food insecurity task force report to move forward on that item. There's the $10 million for childcare that kind of we have within the framework, but that certainly has to be appropriated. Our number one priority is to have the resources to do the testing and the contact tracing that will allow us to reopen and stay open, which is the critical thing for our economy, because the best thing we can do for actually assisting businesses is creating the health situation where they can operate, and they don't need money from us because their customers are coming back. So that's the number one priority. The nice part is the federal government, the state government is also in that space, also putting money out into those services. So where we may have assumed that we're going to spend $25 million on contact tracing, that in fact we wind up spending something significantly less because the state has just stepped in to that arena, and therefore then that becomes flexibility again for us to discuss, us, the executive branch and the council, as to, okay, we aren't going to have that level of expense that we were thinking, so let's put that money into some other important function: business assistance, food assistance, rental assistance, and then meet the needs as we find the situation in a month or in 3 months. But right now we have in excess of $40 million plugged in for testing and contact tracing.
Okay, and I agree with you about where the priority should be, and it's certainly maintaining the health of our community so that we can reopen and get the economy back up and running. I understand your response. You didn't necessarily answer the question about things that you might be planning. You said that there might be things that you were planning that get superseded, and the state might come in and where the funding gets moved around. But I'll just end on again, a sentiment that I'm hearing from a number of my colleagues, that we just need to improve communication so we're not tripping all over ourselves, and that we're doing our coordination better so that we can serve all of our residents and help our municipalities as best we can so that we can recover and reopen our economy. So I'll just close and say happy birthday. And thank you for all the work that you're doing.
I'm hoping that the hearing is going to be over before my family dinner.
Well, we'll all be at your family dinner that way, Rich. Look at the bright side of this. Absolutely. Councilmember Rice.
So I'm going to try and be quick then. I don't want to stand in the way of a man at his birthday dinner. But let me just say this. I fully support our municipalities and their work. I don't have many in my district, and the ones I have are very small. But let me, it's one in which all of us who've been on this council have known the history of dealing with the tax duplication issue. It's been one that we've talked about at the state level as well as at the local level. And so from that perspective, I think everybody's clear in terms of making sure that we recognize where folks are. I do believe the devil's in the details. As Director Madaleno mentioned, there are going to be some nuances that may end up not being considered reimbursable for whatever factors may be, but those will be few and far between. The reality is that there's a lot of what folks are doing in our municipal governments that we know are incredibly important and help supplant, if not stand up the great work that's being done for us as a council or in places where we haven't been able to reach. And we know that as we work with our nonprofits and others who do the same exact thing. So obviously from that perspective, we've got to make sure that we're supporting them. When it comes to this whole notion of what we need to do with protecting future funding and how we want to best come up with that approach, let me just say this. Folks are demanding change and us fixing problems now, not fixing problems 3 months from now, 4 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And we need to react accordingly. And so from that perspective, I think the council has done a great job when it came to working with the executive side on food insecurity, when it came to working with the executive side in a number of things. The council has reached out in terms of our special appropriations and made sure that we worked with department heads as well as the executive himself in terms of ensuring that we were all on the same page. And I think that can continue. I don't think we necessarily have to press a pause button and say, well, wait, let's wait and then decide what our strategy is going to be. What we need to do is address these things head on as they come directly to us. And so from that perspective, I just really wanted to highlight that because from my standpoint, the process, Mr. Madaleno, that you described is one that seems to slow some of that down. And unfortunately, what will happen is people are going to suffer as a result. And I'm not saying that you're advocating for people suffering or anything like that. It's just that when we see this need that continues to grow and we know it's going to grow exponentially over the next coming weeks and months as we continue to try and navigate this recession and to navigate a new real estate crisis that's going to have a grip on this entire country, not just us here in Montgomery County, with record foreclosures and everything else, evictions, the whole 9 yards. We just need to respond right away. And that's going to be food insecurity. That's going to be EITC. That's going to be all kinds of things that are out there that we know we're going to have to spend money on. And so we need to be ready and prepared to spend that now. We don't need to say, well, we'll wait or we'll hold. We need to be ready to react right away. And I know that there are things, just namely in our school system, that I'm working on right now that we're going to have to respond to right away to make sure that we're set for the fall. That can't wait. And so from that perspective, I just want to caution my colleagues about taking that sort of approach because it's not going to be one that I think is conducive with us reacting and responding to the concerns that we're seeing in our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson.
Appreciate it. I wanted to talk about the process once we got to it, so I'm glad we're talking about it now. A couple things on this. One, I, again, point out what was just said by Councilmember Rice is similar, and reiterated by Councilmember Navarro, similar to what I raised earlier. I think it's a bit of a theme. The speed hasn't been the issue on our end, and that is a concern in a time of crisis, and in a normal environment, you would assume that that's why something like this would be required, to provide that flexibility in order to move quickly. I'd also point out that the county executive has the authority today to move 10% within any appropriation that we have allocated in fiscal year 20 and moving forward into fiscal year 21 by his own executive authority, by the county's charter. And so there is significant flexibility already there. I understand, the governor of the state of Maryland has the greatest executive budgetary authority of just about any executive in any government, in any structure in the United States. But the county executive has pretty significant powers as well. I do have concerns about the proposal, not for its intention, which I agree with, which is to be deliberative and thoughtful and collaborative and to make sure that we are having a strategic view of how we efficiently, effectively appropriate these limited funds for the most needed purposes to address the crisis. But the council is the appropriator of funds. I do have a concern that we would basically be ceding our appropriation authority to the executive branch, which just I find to be inappropriate personally, and not in keeping with the structure of county government as it was intended. Now, if we want to give up that part of our job, we can, but I just don't think it's advisable. I do think that we could accomplish the goal without doing that. And here's what I would say. This is based on the proposal before us is based on approval on a number of issues, but largely based on the executive branch's determination of how it wishes to allocate the $183 million. We've been briefed on that. I have asked for a specific plan with a timeline. We've yet to receive any such thing. But if we're going to base any decisions off of that, besides it being a guideline to understand where the executive branch is thinking in terms of proportionality of expenses, the council needs to determine that. So I am fine if we set up a process with advice and feedback from the executive branch where this body determines how we're going to appropriate the $183 million, and then we hold ourselves accountable to that. That is quite different from what is before us now, which is the executive branch has sent us something over of a desire. It's a proposal is all it is. This is how we intend to spend the money with no timeline, no real understanding of what exactly it is, just broad categories. And I will point out the $183 million, last I've seen, doesn't really add up currently because there's certain things that aren't included in there, like differential pay that only goes through July 1st, up to July 1st. There's a new, negotiated agreement. I assume that is going to continue to come out of this account. There are going to be all kinds of things that require changes, but the council should be making appropriation decisions, not the executive branch. The executive branch should be providing feedback based on implementation, based on capacity, based on needs of its staff. And I would just point out as well, one, we've been asking for that and haven't received it. Two, it's ultimately the council's authority, and we need to maintain, I believe, that authority. Three, some of this issue, a big part of this issue, has been a lack of communication, not just between the executive branch and the county council, and I think everybody, has talked about that before, but within the executive branch itself, because on a number of these items, including the child care proposal, including the business grants, including a number of other areas, council staff and individual council members, myself included, and our staffs, have been discussing these specific proposals and crafting them with the active involvement and support of those who would actually be implementing it. But somehow there are plans of other folks in the executive branch who have different ideas and are working on different proposals, and that communication is not taking place. And so, we don't solve this just with in agreement here with that. I mean, there are functionalities that need to be improved, and I think we can all take responsibility for our part of that. I'm willing to take mine, certainly, but there are issues that we need to work out. But ultimately, the council makes appropriation decisions. Now, I do agree that we need to be very cautious, especially now we're at the point, we keep saying we're going to start. we need to decide and agree upon how much money is available for different areas. We can always tweak it. We can always change it. The council needs to make that decision as an overarching idea. And then we need to be willing to adjust it and move it. And, food security is a good example. Business grants are another example. There's lots of other areas. I never agreed, and nobody else on the council, as far as I'm aware of, agreed on, the current spreadsheet that has been provided. And if we're going to use that, I think the council should hold ourselves accountable to it. We should decide it with the support and feedback and input of the executive branch, and then we should move forward that way. But I don't think that it's appropriate for us to get approval for our budgetary authority from the executive branch before moving forward with different legislative and budgetary initiative. I just find that to be outside the structure of the way our government is set up.
Hear, hear.
Okay. We have no other speakers.
May I speak?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
So I agree with that comment. I don't feel that council members need approval from the executive branch to introduce an appropriation. I don't know that that is exactly what was proposed, but generally speaking, I think getting some feedback could be okay. I don't think council members are truly bound to it. I think the rules of the council remain. They will be what they are tomorrow, what they were yesterday. And at the moment, our practice is a council member needs 4 other council members' support for a COVID-related appropriation request. And I think we can continue with that. Council members may be advised to solicit some feedback from the executive branch, but we are not obligated to do it, in my opinion, anything other than seek, per our own informal practice, for colleagues' support.
And I don't disagree that we're not obligated to do it. I think it's a good business practice to do it. I think that communication is always the right thing to do, and that's what I believe that we should be doing. And I also believe that everything should not be, unless it truly is an emergency, last minute. I think that we need to involve the central staff that, and we've said this before, and I'm not in disagreement with it. I believe we need to involve our central staff as quickly as we can to be involved and to give us their feedback, not everything on a Friday afternoon for Tuesday, but to give us their feedback to tell us whether or not the dollar amounts that are being suggested really are going to be the dollar amounts that make the difference. Because just by coming up with an arbitrary number is not really solving a problem. We need to know, I need to know, what those dollars actually buy and how we can actually help people. And that's the bottom line for all of us. Nobody wants to do anything that's not. Having said all that, Ms. Michelson, are you clear, comfortable with what we're attempting to accomplish? And is there a way forward for you to do it, please?
Yeah, let me see if I can summarize what I heard, that
Okay.
The council does not appear to be interested in any process that requires sort of formal submission or feedback from the executive, but that most people seem to think it is a good idea for council members to try and share information, coordinate, get some feedback, but that is in no way binding. A council member can obviously still go ahead without it, with a special appropriation without it, and that your recommendation to your colleagues is that we try and leave enough time to make sure that central staff can also be involved and do a bit of analysis as well. But all of that said, there won't be any new sort of formal change. I think Councilmember Navarro described what we have traditionally done that involves this coordination. It's been a little bit more difficult over the last few months. So returning to our normal practice of involving an analyst who can also touch base with the executive, I think will solve some of the problems that have had due to lack of coordination.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Freed.
Can I add one thing in the communication that the executive and the CAO had with you Council President Katz.
Yes.
I think there was a desire that to help aid in the communication, that the central point of contact would be Dr. Stoddard as the recovery manager, so that just that, you know, while like Council Member Friedson was talking about, you're working with an executive staff, you've shared that information with the executive staff, that as the recovery manager, he would be the key central person to just also be kept up to date with what's happening. The county executive does not assume, nor did he ever propose a veto of an idea. It was just sharing information. Of course, you would still have your powers to introduce something, to appropriate something, however you wanted it. It was just the communication. And I just wanted to make the point that Earl Stoddard is supposed to be, as the recovery manager, the key spoke in the communication.
And thank you. And obviously, central staff would be working with him. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think we can certainly, you know, from the council side, make sure that we include Dr. Stoddard in that. I think, you know, I would encourage the executive staff to include Dr. Stoddard as they're having conversations with the council and stakeholders, because it does seem like that there has been a disconnect there when lots of conversations have taken place, and it seemed like there were other efforts going on. I mean, when you speak to the council, you should assume that you're speaking to the council, and when we speak to the executive branch, we should assume that we're speaking to the executive branch, and it should be the job of the organization to figure out its own internal communication, and we all need to sort that out, certainly. Could I add one piece, Ms. Michelson, to what you had said? I think the regular process, as has been mentioned, makes a whole lot of sense. It would be nice to try to get as close back to that regular process as possible. Obviously, we're not in a regular time, so it's not always perfect. But I do think, and I had mentioned, the $183 million, or what's left of it, the approximately $100 million, including what has been spent, not just what has been appropriated. The council should discuss that. We should approve that, and then we should hold ourselves accountable to it. To me, that's the missing piece here. And so if we could get on the agenda ASAP, an opportunity to discuss, here's the $100 million, and for us to have an agreement of what, based on, we now know the feedback of the executive branch, this is how they see it, and we should determine how we see it, and then we should move forward to that. And if there are proposals by individual council members that go outside that, I think we can self-regulate ourselves by, it will be a majority agreement, and a majority, or a supermajority, actually 6 votes are required of an emergency, special appropriation. Anyway, we can handle that. But I think that, to me, that's the missing piece. We shouldn't accept that we're going to follow the executive branch's decision of how the money is going to be appropriated without the opportunity to deliberate, debate, and discuss it.
Okay. All right, and it's a good suggestion for the agenda. We will, Ms. Michelson and the clerk will certainly work on that with me on it. Okay, so based on all of that, we have a motion before us that, no, we don't. We need a motion. We have the amendment before us. We need a motion to approve item number 8, the special appropriation for the FY20 operating budget in the amount of $80 million.
So moved.
It has been moved by Councilmember Rice. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Reamer. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we are now going to action item number 9, which is the public hearing, we had the public hearing on the $500,000 for the 3R initiative. It's for the Economic Development Corporation. Councilmember Reamer, did you want to speak on this topic?
Thank you. Well, I did make some comments about it last week. Ben Wu and Sarah Miller have been on the phone since 1:30, I think, to speak to this. So I apologize to them for keeping them waiting. I know Sarah had an appointment for her graduation with her son, and I hope she took him. A curbside graduation ceremony. So Ben is on the phone, I believe, and there he is. I thought it might be helpful just to hear a brief overview from MC EDC. They've been doing a lot of work on this. If council members have some questions, there were some points raised during testimony that I know we'll address. So, Mr. Council President, I think I'd turn it to Ben.
Okay. Mr. Wu, please.
Well, thank you, Council President Katz and members of the Council. The MCDC shares your enthusiasm for the promise of the 3R initiative. So I want to thank the Council for your unanimous support of this pilot project, especially to Councilman Reamer for his introduction and also Councilmember Friedson for his input using the Bethesda Streetery, which opened up just this past weekend, as a model. The 3R initiative is the type of public-private partnership that MCDC has been designed to create. MCDC has been able to secure a $250,000 corporate contribution, which, coupled with our own match and further match collectively by the county government in the bill before you today, means we now have a $1 million project that will support severely impacted food and beverage establishments as they begin the process of reopening. Now, just 3 months ago, before the pandemic, over 2,500 storefronts enlivened commercial districts across Montgomery County, providing over 45,000 jobs. And now they're looking for our help as they begin reopening. And so the 3R initiative is a community-based pilot project designed to provide recovery recommendations, expert technical assistance, and also financial support to qualifying retail establishments in targeted locations in the county. And so at the MCDC, we're pleased to administer this year-long initiative because we want to assist participating businesses that move through not just the initial summer months, and also as they make adjustments for the fall, but including, if necessary, preparations for a second wave of closures, and also to provide support during the important holiday season. So we look forward to working with the council, the county executive, the chambers of commerce, community organizations, a number of external stakeholders to collectively ensure that the 3R initiative can be as impactful as possible. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much.
Can I just make one amendment there? It also does include retail. That we did hear that in testimony, and retail is part of the vision and the strategy. Thank you.
Right, retail of storefronts of any kind, definitely not just restaurants.
Right. Councilmember Reamer, did you want to make a motion?
Please, I would. I move that the council approve the appropriation that is before us for the 3R.
Second. It's been seconded by Councilmember Friedson. Councilmember Friedson is the next speaker. Could you?
Yeah, just very quickly. I just wanted to note there was a comment made by our chambers during the public hearing, which feels like it was yesterday, but it turns out it was earlier in the same meeting, about the money not going far enough and needing to have additional grants. There are conversations, and Council President Katz and I are working on reopening grants, as has been discussed, and what the next project is, with a lot of input from other council members, like including my colleagues on the Fed committee, Councilmember Joando and Councilmember Reamer. And so we're working on that. That is not, we can't solve every problem on every issue, but I just wanted to note that there is a complete recognition that this appropriation and this funding is not going to provide the type of grants to allow businesses to reopen at the scale that is needed, that there are separate and supplementary efforts underway for that. And I will just point out on the retail side, the private sector support that is part of this effort is a local business, but a world-renowned expert in that specific area in retail. And so that is definitely a key part of this, and look forward to seeing what we can do with it. And there was also the issue raised of a lack of urban districts. And I just wanted to point out, I was in East County earlier this past weekend with Giroux, our East County director, and small changes, just using parking spaces and turning them into outdoor seating areas for how local retail and local restaurants has made a huge impact in a number of those shopping centers. If we can take some of those ideas, not just of the Bethesda Streetery, but what our regional service directors are attempting to do, in locations all across the county, to be able to take the best practices with some serious technical expertise and provide the support and help, it could really make a huge impact, not just in specific urban areas, but in areas throughout the county, and we can learn best practice to be able to spread it around the county in a significant way. So I'm excited about that, look forward to it, but I just wanted to speak to a couple of the items that were brought up in the public hearing, which I thought were very valid, and just wanted folks to know that we are certainly working on those efforts, either part of this initiative or in supplemental efforts related to it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer, did you have another comment?
Yeah, just in closing, thank you, Andrew, for elaborating. As I had said last week when we opened it up, the vision here is to take the new thinking about how to support restaurants and retail in the outdoor environment and bring that to other settings around the county, specifically envisioning older shopping centers in more suburban places in the county as much as urban centers. So we really are trying to take the good thinking that BUP devised for Bethesda and bring that to other parts of the county with support, with grants, with consulting, direct one-to-one business, technical consulting with renowned national experts, as Andrew said. And it's a good targeted program, and we'll see how the process goes. And it's not FEG 2.0. We aren't envisioning it that way. This is a specific strategy, and perhaps we'll want to expand it, but I think it just makes sense to start off as you have it before you today, and we'll see how it goes. And thank you to Andrew for his good thinking, and the telework fund is going to be tapped for the county's share of this as well. So that's helpful as well. So I'm optimistic that our residents will see the benefit from this program, in improved opportunities to get outside and do some shopping, do some dining.
Thank you. It has been moved by Councilmember Reamer, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have the action item on what was public hearing number 10, which is the early care and education non-departmental account in the amount of $10 million. Councilmember Navarro, did you wish to speak about that, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, really want to thank Councilmember Friedson, Councilmember Reamer, and really the rest of my colleagues for always stepping up when it comes to early care and education. Specifically, we know we've already said this before. This is a really critical component of our recovery. Before the pandemic hit, we already understood and had already made some really bold moves to put forth a strategy for early care and education. And now, more than ever, we understand very clearly the need to make sure that we can jumpstart this very important sector. I want to thank those who came to testify, the Chamber, Ms. Trisha Swanson, Ms. Joanne Hurt, and all the members that came from the Latino Child Care Association. Really thank them for coming and sharing their stories. I think it's always so much more impactful, at least for me it is, to hear the specific and personal situations and conditions that are affecting our community members, especially when it comes to this particular sector. I did also want to acknowledge that we did receive, I believe, a letter from Mr. Sean Rose with two particular observations about the special appropriation. One is the issue of license capacity versus number of sites. And as all of you know, the special appropriation does reference license capacity. It's something that we discussed and had gotten some feedback, and that change was already made, so that's already there. And then the issue of which months will this cover? Currently, it's for losses from April and May. He makes the point that also June, July, and August should be included. I would just say that obviously, like we have said before, this is a initial investment. I mean, we know that it is very possible that we're going to have to come back. So I personally feel very comfortable with the way it's drafted. I think it's going to help a lot of folks get ready and get things going. I appreciate that feedback, and no doubt I think we will have to most likely come back and take stock once we understand how this special appropriation has been implemented and what else we need to do. There's no doubt that this is a very, very important issue. And again, just really want to thank all my colleagues. So with that, of course, I would like to move the special appropriation.
Thank you. And it's been seconded by Councilmember Friedson. And it's been seconded by Councilmember Friedson. And Councilmember Friedson, you are the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just very quickly, a couple comments and then a couple questions, and then hopefully we're ready to approve this. I said before, I'll say again, we can't talk about reopening unless we're talking about childcare, and this is an issue that is always challenging for providers and something that has become acutely an issue in this current environment that we're in. And as Councilmember Navarro mentioned, this is not going to solve every problem. This is not going to help every facility. This is not going to fix an industry that has been hit particularly hard by this pandemic, but it's something, and it's significant, and it will help a lot. And that is what we've been trying to do in every other area, and I'm really proud of the collaborative work that we've been able to do on this council and with the executive branch. I think this is a good example of us collaborating, and when we do communicate, we collaborate well, and we get to good outcomes, and we solve problems, and we address community concerns, and this is a good example of it, and that this is not just a social and moral necessity, it's an economic imperative. But a couple questions. One of the comments that has been made, and I wanted to make sure that we note, Ms. Yao, could you speak to the PPP and clarify and confirm that organizations that receive PPP funding are still eligible for this? Can you just explain that aspect of it? Because I think there was some confusion there.
Sure. Yes. So how we factored organizations that got relief funding through PPP or other state, county initiatives, they are eligible to apply for this funding. As it relates to recovery for losses, that amount that they're eligible for is calculated and reduced by the amount of funding that these organizations received for prior relief funding through other sources.
Thank you. And then one additional question, or really a clarification, if you could provide it, but there was significant conversation in the joint committee. There's been a lot of discussion on the question of the calculation and whether it includes the empty seats, the seats that aren't filled, the vacant seats based on social distancing and otherwise. And we heard actually that in the public hearing again today, or whether it is occupied seats. And could you clarify that?
Sure, and Councilmember Navarro actually mentioned this when she gave comments, but again, the calculation for operating costs is based on license capacity, not enrollment, but license capacity times a particular cost of care. So again, that includes empty seats, if you will.
Okay, great. We were on the same page with that. There were some questions and confusion. Councilmember Navarro mentioned it. I wanted to make sure it was reiterated and clarified, and I think that alleviates most of the concerns that have been raised on this. And again, appreciate all of the work and all of your work, Ms. Yao, on this as well.
Thank you. It is my understanding, Councilmember Navarro, since you made the motion, that there was a suggestion for it to change the source of funding. Ms. Yao, I saw you jumping up and down when I mentioned it.
I wanted to make sure we clarified that since we're doing these things. There's a change in process. Wanted to request that the council amend the source of funding to federal grant funds instead of general fund reserves.
Councilmember Navarro, is that?
Yes, I'll amend. I'll accept that as a friendly amendment to the motion.
Councilmember Friedson, are you going to go ahead on the amendment and agree with that? And,
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Rice, please.
Well, thank you very much. And to my colleagues, Councilmember Friedson and Councilmember Navarro, who's always been a stalwart of this initiative when focusing on early care and education, I wanted to say something because, you know, it's very interesting people talking about the council in this current context and questioning whether or not we're doing all that we should be doing. And I wanted to highlight something that a lot of people don't realize about focusing on early care and education, especially when it comes to our education initiatives here in the county. The reality is that an investment in early care and education is a significant down payment when it comes to eliminating the gaps that we see, those barriers to children as they get older and they enter into our school system, not at the same level as they come into kindergarten. And so having access is one of the key tenets of that. But something that a lot of people didn't pay attention to, and I really appreciate this being a part of this appropriation, was a focus on Maryland Excels and the Maryland Excels program, something that we highlighted as a part of our current commission work, and certainly something that I know that Councilmember Navarro and all of the folks who worked with her have been advocates for as well, which continues to make sure that the highest quality level of our early care and education is being provided to a lot of our students who typically would not be able to access this. And so this is tremendous on so many different levels, because what we're doing is we're elevating all of our folks and really putting a priority around ensuring that they get the top-notch level of early care and education to make sure that we can eliminate the opportunity, equity, achievement gaps that we see in our schools. And so for those who say or who question, well, what is it that the county is doing when it comes to the achievement gap? What is the county doing? You know, what is the county council doing? Well, it's things like this. I mean, this is significant investment, not only just from an economic development perspective, and I couldn't agree more with Councilmember Friedson. He's right. You can't open up businesses without having childcare, but you also can't have any of those structures in terms of economic development without a strong education system and a strong bolstering of our education system. And it starts at the beginning. It starts at, 0 to 5. And so having this here that is of that level is something that we didn't talk about before, but certainly is something that's incredibly important. We should be so proud of because it stands up for what we continue to talk about, the work that we've been doing for eons, not just this year, not just last year. This has been something we've been investing in a very long time and continue to do, with both Councilmember Reamer and Navarro leading the way, and now Councilmember Friedson coming in. I mean, this is just great to see. And so it really is a testament, again, and I keep throwing around this terminology because it was used the other day about something being a statement of our moral values and it being a moral document. This is a statement of our morality here and what we care about and what we think is important. So I just really want to lift it up and say it's more than just about providing care for kids. This is something much deeper, and it was well thought out in making it that way. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilmember Navarro, seconded by Councilmember Friedson to approve this motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is legislative session day 19, and it's introduction of bills. The first one is Bill 2420, in Administration, Police, Assistant Chiefs of Police. The lead sponsor is the Council President at the request of the County Executive, and a public hearing is scheduled for July 7th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. The next bill, I don't see anybody wanting to speak on any of this so far. The next bill is introduction of a bill 2520, rental assistance amendments. Lead sponsor is the Council President at the request of the County Executive. The public hearing is scheduled for July 7th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. The next bill is Bill 2620, Environmental Sustainability, Energy, and Air Quality Advisory Committee Amendments. Lead sponsor is the Council President at the request of the County Executive, and the public hearing is scheduled for July 7th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. The last bill for today is Expedited Bill 2720, Police Regulations, Use of Force Policy. The lead sponsors are Council Members Jawando, Rice, Navarro, and Albernaz. Co-sponsors, Council Members Hucker, Reamer, Fritzen, Glass, and Katz. The public hearing will be scheduled at a future date, and Council Member Jawando would like to speak.
Thank you, Council President, for the recognition. We are in a tumultuous time. We're at a precipice where we can either answer the call for change or allow business as usual to continue. We're seeing it around us, a worldwide, not just nationwide, a worldwide call for change. In particular, a call for a stop to police violence, to use of excessive force, and for structural policy and budgetary change in how we reimagine public safety. We say it all the time. It's one of our greatest strengths that we are one of the most diverse counties in the nation, with 4 of the top 10 most diverse cities. But that also means, with a majority community of color, we are not immune to the systemic and structural racism that manifests in so many ways, but in relation to this bill in particular, in our criminal justice system. We know that 55% of the use of force incidents by police in our county in 2018 were against Black residents, despite only representing 19% of the population. I'm going to say it again, 55% of situations where force was used in our county, actually higher than the national average at 52%, were against our Black residents. This reality is not always spoken of because, like many things in our county, policing is experienced differently, depending on who you are and where you live. So when people have watched with horror, all people, the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police and the knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, people were jarred into action. And then it makes people self-reflect, or could that happen here? Are we at risk? One of the first things I thought about after just complete sadness and anger was a case here in Montgomery County last year where Officer Morris dangerously and aggressively kneed a suspect while he was handcuffed and restrained outside of an Aspen Hill McDonald's, kneed him in the head. I think of Robert White, who we just commemorated 2 years ago, was killed walking on a walk that he had done thousands of times before in his own neighborhood, and was pursued because he had a ripped jacket that ended in his death, being shot 7 times. I think of Fernand Burhe, who just weeks ago, 30-year-old Eritrean American resident of our county, who was shot and killed when de-escalation techniques were not used. And then I think about the work that we've done on this council. The first bill I introduced, the first bill of this council, the Law Enforcement Trust and Transparency Act, unanimously approved, in effect as of this year, to require independent investigations in police-involved deaths. The community policing bill that my colleagues, Councilmembers Navarro and Rice, put forward with support of so many. The Racial Justice and Social Equity Act, all aimed, the resolution we approved today, declaring racism a public health emergency, all aimed at moving away from these type of horrific events. And I've said it, in that case, outside of the Aspen Hill McDonald's, if that young man was paralyzed or killed, which could have happened with the force of that knee, we would have been Minneapolis a year ago. And the same officers stood around and watched it happen. And so when we talk about could it happen here? Yes, it could. And then just 2 days ago, in the midst of nationwide and worldwide protests in all 50 states and in almost every country on the globe, saying Black Lives Matter and protesting police violence, we have to deal and incur another death in Atlanta of Rashard Brooks, shot twice in the back after he was found sleeping in a Wendy's drive-thru. And yes, he had something to drink. And yes, he offered to go home to his sister's house after a very calm conversation with officers. But he wasn't afforded that right. And then he was shot in the back and killed. These incidents happen all too often when we have interactions with law enforcement. As I mentioned, of the force that's used against Black people in this country, 52% of all use of force incidents by law enforcement nationally are against Black people. It's 55% in Montgomery County. We have an issue. Of the 15,000 arrests in 2018, 50% of them were Black people. When you add Latino residents, you get over to 75% of the arrests in 2018 were people of color in this county. That's unacceptable, and we need to answer why that's the question. And we know that institutional racism is at the core of that. So when we think about George Floyd, when we think about the action we need to take here locally, I think about those events, and I'm compelled to act. I'm so proud to be working with Council Members Rice, Council Member Navarro, Council Member Albanaz as the co-leads on this bill. I think it's significant that as the members of color on the council that we led this effort to put forward a serious and significant package of use of force policy reforms that will keep people safer. I want to outline just those briefly now before I pause. This bill will prohibit deadly force. It will instruct the police chief to create a new use of force policy. We have one now. It hasn't been updated since 2016. That prohibits the use of deadly force unless absolutely necessary as a last resort after reasonable alternatives to use the force have been exhausted, to use less force or no force have been exhausted, to prevent against imminent threat or serious bodily injury. And I want to talk about what reasonable alternatives means briefly. That's in the bill. It means tactics and methods used by law enforcement to effectuate an arrest that do not unreasonably increase the risk posed to the law enforcement officer or another person, including verbal communication, distance, warnings, de-escalation tactics, tactical repositioning, and other tactics and techniques intended to stabilize the situation and reduce the immediacy of the risk so that more time, options, and resources can be called upon to resolve the situation without the use of force. That's what this policy must do and must train and call on officers to do. It also importantly prohibits chokeholds and neck restraints like that we saw on George Floyd and the knee to the neck that we saw on Mr. Pessoa, done by Officer Morris, who was rightly charged and convicted of assault. It also requires officer intervention to stop another officer when they witness them using excessive force, violating department policy, or committing a crime. I'm glad to see that after our urging and this council's urging last year after this case that I mentioned of Mr. Pessoa, the department has worked on a policy that is similar to this and hopefully will be in line with the law when we pass this law. Another important point, though, is that this provision in this law also will protect an officer from any retaliation or punishment if they are acting reasonably and interfering with another officer's actions. We don't want officers who think something wrong is happening to hesitate. We've seen that in multiple cases here and across the country. The chief will have 60 days to implement this new policy. So I'm very glad we're taking this step. It's a far-reaching step. It's modeled off of components of it are modeled off the state of California, which last year became one of the first states in the country to raise the standard of when deadly force can be used from reasonableness standard to necessary. We know the city of Seattle has taken similar action, and when they did, saw a decrease in deaths of residents. At the same time, no additional injuries to officers, which is also very important. So I thank everyone for listening and watching and for writing in and engaging on this bill. We must protect all of our residents, and that includes our Black residents, our brown residents, our immigrant residents, everyone who disproportionately has contact with the police. And these policies aren't just going to protect the Black community or the communities of color. It will protect all residents, which is what we want. We want de-escalation to be the rule, not the exception, and not depend on who you are. So as we declared today, racism and public health crisis, this bill is a direct response and one of the many steps we're going to need to take to make sure that we are responding to that emergency. A lot more remains to be done in training and what we incentivize in policing. Not just tickets and arrests, but positive outcomes. And we're going to be working on all that. But this is a direct response on the accountability side and on the use of force side to protect life for all of our residents. Finally, I want to thank all my council colleagues, every other member, Council President Katz, Vice President Hucker, Councilmember Glass, Councilmember Reamer, for co-sponsoring this legislation. Councilmember Hucker, without you, we couldn't get this done. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I know we'll have robust debate. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilmember Jawando. You know, it's interesting because Councilmember Jawando and I haven't always been on the same page when it comes to policing here in Montgomery County. And it says something. It says something about how when legislators come together to understand that there's a problem and how best to fix that, we wrap our heads around how to make that happen. And two stalwart advocates in our community who understand completely what it means to have discrimination and to have folks that have already deemed negative outcomes for you just based on how you look, Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Alanos. I couldn't think of a better team in which for us to try and tackle this difficult issue. And it's difficult because, you know, as somebody just texted me and said, it is troubling that in 2020 we have to do this. But the reality is that just because it's 2020 doesn't mean that we've come a long way. We've certainly made some advances, but the reality is that there's so much that's still the same. Right now, as we speak, there's still a mother or father who's telling their child that people of color are less than them. Don't trust them. Always make sure you guard yourself and watch your back around them. That's what's being taught right now. And the very interesting thing is you don't see the counter that's being taught. And that's what we have to try and overcome from a societal standpoint. And so that young child that grows up that also thinks to themselves, I want to have law and order in my community and want to do right by protecting the laws, decides that they want to become a police officer. And that person answers all the questions right because they truly care about the safety of their community. They care about making sure that folks follow the laws. But when it comes to the analysis of how they tackle a situation with that person, that ingrained racism that's been there for so long shapes how it is that they're going to interact with that individual. And that's what we oftentimes see. It starts with the initial suspicion. It starts with why you're stopping somebody and pulling them over, like Ahmaud Arbery. It's that same sort of mindset that, oh, you must be doing something wrong because you can't be black and be just minding your business, running down the road jogging. That can't be the case. And if you're taught that, then it's very difficult to then have that overcome by any kind of training. The reality is that we have to deal and come to grips with the fact that we have racism that's being bred in our communities all across this country today as we speak. And so when folks ask, well, why is this necessary, right? Why does this need to happen? The reality is that we need to protect life. It says to protect and serve with our officers. That's what we've always said, to protect and serve. And so protecting and serving is not erring on the side of pulling out my handgun first. It's not erring on the side of let me try and create a situation that wasn't a situation to begin with. It's not erring on the side of, well, because I can justify the fact of shooting a person, it's okay to shoot a person. That's not what protect and serve is. Protect and serve is erring on the side of doing everything possible to avoid those kinds of situations from even possibly beginning, let alone them getting to that ultimate recourse that's at the end, which means the loss of life. That should be the ultimate last resort. But yet it seems as though that's the first thing that folks go to. It seems as though that's the first thing that folks reach for when there are other options. And so it's interesting because when I analyzed both the Fina and Verhey and Robert White videos, I thought, okay, I see a shooting and I see in both cases that there were there was an altercation with an officer, and I can see myself understanding how the officer ended up doing what they're doing and going through that process. But here's the problem. Could the officer have done something to avoid that situation from beginning to start? Could they have said, you know what, I'm going to back off, keep an eye on the person, and wait for more backup to come? Obviously, it seems as though this person is having an episode. Let me call for backup. Let me call for additional resources, crisis intervention team, whatever the case may be. Those are the kinds of things where we're asking folks to take additional steps. We're asking folks to consider the fact of life and to understand that just because a person is having an episode doesn't mean that it's okay to kill them. That's what I understand about this situation that is very different from just being justified under the law in terms of use of deadly force. And it's the reason why this bill has to pass. Because we need to continue to send a message to our officers and to the community, making sure that we create a situation in which we are galvanizing in law, not just in practice, not just in preaching, but galvanizing in law the fact that we want this use of force to be that last resort. We don't want you to think that going to the neck on a person is the right thing to do. Putting a person in an MMA chokehold is the right way to command a situation. That's an obsession of domination. That's an obsession of power. That's not an obsession of trying to create order. And it definitely isn't something about protecting and serving. So I think that we've gone down the wrong road when it comes to some of our policing tactics that some of our officers use. Do all of them use it? Absolutely not. Maybe there are way more than should be. Well, of course there are. There should be a single person who's doing it that way, right? There are better techniques and better ways in which we can ensure that the situation becomes de-escalated. But I want to make sure that I also say that when it comes to us figuring out how to have one of the best police forces we can, it encompasses something like this. I understand that there are people out there that are saying, Craig, you're a young black guy, or an older black guy now. How can you support the police? Well, I don't support the police in that sense of saying, oh, I support the police over the people. I support an organization that is supposed to protect and serve us. That's what I support. I support the ideology of an entity that's there to protect each and every one of us, regardless of the color of our skin, regardless of how much money we have, regardless of our mental condition or capacity, regardless of our physical condition, regardless of any of those things. They are there to lay down their lives for us. That's what I support. I support people who have vowed to take the ultimate sacrifice to lay down their lives for others. Unfortunately, we've talked about the exact opposite of individual citizens laying down their lives at the hands of police officers. And that's when we know we've gone awry. That's when we know we need to make a change. That's why this bill is important. That's why I support it. That's why I appreciate all of my colleagues who've worked with me on this, and to those who are supporting this as co-sponsors. This is incredibly important, because the only way that we're going to get a handle on our community in terms of ensuring that we have a department that makes sure that every single officer is protecting and serving is to make changes like this. So thank you very much to my colleagues. for all of their support. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. President. So for some reason, I was reminded of this article I read a long time ago from The Atlantic that talked about how teachers of color have a very short span in terms of staying in the workforce as teachers. And the reason why was because there is this obvious internalizing of issues like the achievement gap and this personalization and this sort of like extra burden that you carry in your shoulders because you totally relate and you totally identified and you've been there. And so it is so much harder. The burnout rate is so high because it just wanes on you. And so I first want to acknowledge what this means for Councilmember Joando and Councilmember Rice, as Black men in this country. I know that this is a heavy burden. And I think sometimes it's hard because, as elected officials of color, you got to be sharp and you got to be on top of things and you got to come up with all the policies and you have to be strategic and you have to be all these things. And then you go home and you have to face your children and you want to protect them. And when they're little, you want to protect them from all the microaggressions that they're going to face. And then when they grow up, you want to protect them in the job place. And it's just a constant battle, an internal battle. I'm going to confess, the first time I went to Canada with I think my daughter was turning 10, all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't feeling this heaviness. We went throughout a little village outside of Montreal to get some poutine in a little diner, and there were like 17 of us. And I was already thinking, oh my God, here we are, like 17 of us. We're all like Black people and brown people, we're like taking over this diner. And we walk in and they're just like, welcome. And, so I was already conditioned. And I say that because there is this relentless pressure day to day that nobody really talks about, but it's there. And so I want to acknowledge you and I want to tell you that I appreciate you because I know how tough this is. I also want to say that, this bill in many ways puts forth particular policies that are just common sense. When people watch these videos, like everybody asks the same question, right? Like, was that necessary? Like, how come they did that? And you have to be factual. But then when you look at the disproportionality, you see and you understand that if you're going to look at it from an analytical perspective, it was not necessary. Because the same thing is not happening in other communities. So the de-escalation is happening when you're dealing with members of the white, communities, but for some reason, this disproportionality we see in so many different areas with our communities of color, it doesn't make sense. So to me, this is why this is an important bill. It adds to the body of work that we have taken up until now, that this council has been really relentless in addressing. I am so, inspired by that. I am really, really motivated by that. I know that we are making a difference for those young, elected officials of color that one day will come through to then continue the work, because this is about continuous improvement. But we are at a precipice, like Councilmember Joando said, we're at a turning point, and it is both overwhelming and it's also inspiring. So again, I thank my colleagues of color, and I thank the rest of my colleagues who are allies and are important, I think, also leaders in making sure that we make this county truly what it should be. That this county that is a microcosm of our country and the world continues to be such an amazing place, right? And so when you make that little list of all the things that we are doing, including that consent calendar that somebody said was chock full of great things, and all of this together adds to the greatness of this county because it also addresses the issue of equity and leveling the playing field and opportunities. And so all those other pieces that may be outside of this particular bill also make a difference. And everyone has their imprint on every of this. So thank you very much for allowing me to work on this with you, Councilmember Joanna, Councilmember Rice, Councilmember Bornos, and everybody else. I look forward to many of the further conversations. And I'll lastly say this. Councilmember Rice brought a very important point because we do need to reimagine policing. I do agree with that. I also want to be, fair and say that we do have many police officers who are doing everything possible to be that kind of example. And I know that in many communities in our county, there's so many folks who are are specifically being victimized by organized crime, right? I mean, we know that. And we need to make sure we find that balance. But I do agree 100% that we need to reimagine policing and we need to work on that. And it is possible. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, once again, I'm not going to say it any better than my colleagues just did, but I want to start where Councilmember Jawando started, which is talking about the fact that we just enacted and confirmed that racism is a public health issue. Stress is real. We all feel it in our everyday lives. We feel it personally. We feel it professionally. More often than not, we can deal with it and we move on. But there's an inherent stress that people of color, and in particular our African American brothers and sisters, feel when it comes to interactions with law enforcement. And that is not the fault of our police officers who have sworn into duty. It is the realistic and very real byproduct of generations, and centuries of institutional racism. And the conversations we are having now and the manner in which we are having them have been had before, but this does feel different. This feels different because many people have awakened, finally, to the injustices that they have not personally felt, but are now seeing so acutely and so shockingly in videos. And these injustices have been going on for decades. But by virtue in the last 8 years of us having cameras in our phones, and by us instituting policies in which law enforcement correctly must have cameras on to document each one of these interactions, we're all seeing what people have been seeing their entire lives and have been experiencing for generations. And so this bill is critically important because that trust that is so critical to ensuring public safety for all has been challenged for generations, but has not been challenged like we are seeing now in my lifetime. And so it's critically important for us to stay ahead of that, to provide our community with the understanding that they can have faith in our law enforcement officials. And that's why earlier today, the county executive actually held a press conference with the chief of police and the fraternal order of police leadership that moves forward policies that are somewhat consistent with what we are discussing right now. The difference is that this takes it a step further. It puts it into law. It ensures that future police chiefs, future county executives will be held to the same standard. And that is critically important. And as has been said before, this is one very important and substantive and substantial piece of legislation, but it is only one piece, because there does need to be a paradigm shift in the way that we think about policing so that we support our first responders by providing them with the mental health support and professionals that they need to be able to do their jobs effectively, to be able to assess situations. And there needs to be a merger in thinking in how we think about law enforcement. And it does need to go hand in hand much more intentionally than it does now with our health and human services. because all of these issues, as we know, are connected. And so I, like many of you, have spent my whole life in this county. And for the last 12 years in particular, have worked quite closely with many police officers working on positive youth development in our community. And as Councilmember Navarro said, I have seen firsthand law enforcement officials that have gone way above and beyond and way, not as part of their job description, but spending personal time in investing in mentoring and guiding our youth, not as police officers, but as residents, as citizens, as neighbors. And so I think this is such a critically important moment in time. I know that we are going to step up and meet this challenge. And I know that we are going to come out so much stronger as a community on the other side. We have to go through this pain. It's awful. It's difficult. It's uncomfortable. It's tragic. But I'm confident that it's bringing to bear and bringing to light in a very meaningful way conversations that are long overdue. And we're having them right now. And we're having them in real time. And so I look forward to discussing this particular piece of legislation. But just as importantly, I'm looking forward to the other policy measures that we enact to support our entire community. And it really is an honor to serve with all of you. But I really do want to thank Will and Craig and Nancy for our discussions, for our collaboration and work on this and many issues. And I do also want to just thank so much Hans and Andrew and Evan and Tom and Sydney, because this body's going to stay together and we are going to answer the thousands of questions and comments that we are receiving from our public right now. And we are not going to let this momentum pass us by. We're going to continue moving forward. So thank you very much, Mr. Council President, and I look forward to the deliberation and discussion of this bill later. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Vice President Hucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with so much, all of what's been said, and it's another reminder of how great it is to work with you all. And Gabe just said something I was going to point out about the use of camera phones has completely changed this environment. I know I sort of trained as an organizer, and I think about tactics, and we all learned in school how the deliberate strategy used by civil rights organizers of getting police violence on TV was, has always been seen as key to getting Americans, and largely white Americans in the North, to recognize what had been happening for decades, if not hundreds of years in the South, and change public opinion in a way that allowed the passage of so many of the landmark civil rights laws in the 60s. But if before those actions, which had been going on for so many years, were on TV, the public support wasn't there. And I think the same thing is happening now. The police violence isn't new. The camera phones are new. And they're putting a spotlight on the internet in front of all of us. I got 3 screens going in front of all of us and all Americans every day of what's been going on for a long time. And it's really changed public support on this and led to so many people being out in the street demanding change. And it's great to be having this conversation in this county. And in my district in particular, I can tell you so many constituents, and I know this is true of all of you, have been, demanding changes in police reform, and there's many approaches to it, but at the top of the list is the use of force policy. And I want everybody, watching at home to know that we hear them loud and clear, and we're going to make changes. And I'm confident this bill is going to pass. And I'm grateful to my colleagues, particularly Councilmember Juando and Rice and Navarro and Albornoz, for leading on this. We have to take the boldest action we can in this environment while we can, and before people move on to the next distraction. We don't know when, God forbid, COVID comes back, or this has been a summer of crises. We just are buffeted by them, and we're just careening from one to another that have been dominating all our time. But this is a really important issue, and we can't miss this moment. I'm really glad we're addressing specifically the use of neck and carotid restraints. Many of us believe if they had been banned in Minneapolis, George Floyd might be alive right now. I will say I'm a little nervous just about the exception that allows the use of chokeholds if a police officer believes it's necessary, because, and you know, my colleagues on the Public Safety Committee know that it's hard to disprove what an officer believes in the middle of a crisis. And it's been a subject of debate in investigations of police-involved shootings in past years. In 1993, the New York Police Department prohibited chokeholds but allowed that same exception, and it was used to allow officers to escape discipline where black men have been killed, most recently when Eric Garner died in police custody due to asphyxiation. I believe our police force, and it's been said, they are better trained than most, more capable, more educated than most, and more capable than most, and they can absolutely fully do their jobs without using chokeholds. Most have never used a chokehold, and most would never want to. And just last month, Denver, a very large force of 1,400 officers in a very large and complicated city, banned chokeholds without exceptions. I think having that conversation in the Public Safety Committee, I look forward to, and I think the other elements of the bill prohibiting a police officer from striking a restrained individual, which we've seen in White Oak just last summer. I remember the July 4th conversation I had with the chief, not White Oak, I'm sorry, in Aspen Hill. I remember, like it was yesterday, talking to Chief Jones about it on July 4th, the day it happened. Requiring a police officer to take reasonable action to intervene and protecting police officers from retaliation or discipline if they do report misconduct. Those are all absolutely necessary elements of this bill that I think is going to advance our police policy very significantly in the right direction. So I look forward to the conversation in the Public Safety Committee. Grateful for all of you for getting us to this point, and appreciate you making this a priority when we have an awful lot of things on our plate. Thank you.
Thank you. And I, too, look very forward to the Public Safety Committee's discussion on this. You know, first off, let me thank my colleagues, all the four sponsors, Councilmember Juando, Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Rice, and Councilmember Albernaz. And it is important that the four of you are sponsoring this legislation. But to your points, it is equally important that all of us stand with you. No one can correct something without having the entire community, or most of the entire community, behind you. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We are saying there is a horrible problem, and we are going to solve that horrible problem together. Every person on this council and throughout our community is going to help solve this problem together. And to Councilmember Rice's point, there are so many fine police officers in Montgomery County and throughout Maryland and throughout the United States. And they will tell you, I've been on, I guess, 2 calls last week with police chiefs, and they will tell you how sickened they were over this situation. Sickened. That they saw a murder. And I don't remember, everybody's making good points. I can't remember everybody who said it. But to the idea being about the cameras, there was the fact that everybody has a camera now proves what was being said. The fact that our police officers are wearing cameras shows whether they did something correct or they didn't do something correct. And it's a tough job to be a police officer. Every one of us knows it's a difficult job, but every one of us knows that we are thankful that we have good police officers, and every one of us knows that we need to reinforce what is right. It is never right to hit somebody when they're wearing handcuffs behind their back. It is never right to not attempt to de-escalate before something else happens. It's never right. And of course, you have people that have to make split-second decisions, but their guts have to show that it's never right to hit someone when they're in handcuffs or other restraints, or to choke someone, and the list goes on. But we also have to remember that together is how we solve our issues. I can tell you the Public Safety Committee looks forward to the discussions. We want to hear from everyone on the topic. We want to work with everybody on the topic, and we will. And we will come out, we will prove once again that Montgomery County is the place where people are safe, that people should continue to feel safe. Not everyone feels safe now, but we will do our level best to try to make everyone feel very, very safe, because that is what we are after. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to express my appreciation as well to Councilmember Jawando and to Councilmembers Rice, Navarro, and Albernaz for introducing this legislation. And, with the introduction of this legislation, which is supported by every council member, we're saying that certain tactics and methods used by law enforcement officers are unacceptable. And not only are certain actions prohibited in this legislation, but inaction is prohibited. And when I watched the video in which George Floyd was subdued and murdered, as horrifying and as sickening as that was, it was also horrifying to see other officers watching and doing nothing. They did nothing. And this legislation not only prohibits members of the police department from using deadly force on restrained individuals, but it also requires members of the police to stop, or at least attempt to stop, another officer who is using excessive force, who is violating one of the police policies, department policies, or committing a crime themselves. We have to do better here. I know that Montgomery County, for many, is a wonderful place to live. 1.1 million people, 4 of the 10 most diverse communities in the entire country. But for some, life needs to be better. For some, we want their life back. And this is a hard conversation. We're having lots of hard conversations. We're going to continue having hard conversations, because that is the only way we'll heal and make real progress. And so, again, I want to thank my colleagues for the collective leadership on this. And I look forward to finding a place where everybody can feel safe here in Montgomery County. And again, this is one step. We have many more to go. And I'm heartened to know that I'll be going through that journey with you. And I hope that our residents are as well. So thank you all.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thank you to the 4 lead sponsors for taking the lead to prepare this legislation. You acted really quickly in the wake of the George Floyd incident, and it's very timely now. So I'm just grateful that the council has the opportunity to get into a very substantive discussion about making change. I think it goes without saying, but the moment that we're in is a lot of us are expressing our opinions. We're expressing our support and our solidarity, but we also need to make change. And we have the special opportunity to do that as elected officials. So I think this proposal will be very responsive, and I look forward to working on it with you. And I just want to add, as I've been noting, there are some additional areas that we'll also, and I'm sure my colleagues may have additional proposals under development. I've been particularly focusing on the disciplinary process. This is a policy which the department needs to be able to enforce. And so we need to ensure that the department can enforce its policies. And I certainly believe that there has been undue influence by the FOP in the internal decision making and disciplinary procedures of the MCPD, and we need to fix that. We need to be open about that. We need to be not afraid to say that, and we need to take it on. So I'm advocating to my state elected officials whose support we'll need to make a change there, and I am also working on that for our consideration here. I look forward to working on that with all of you as we really take this issue as head on as we can. So thank you, and I just want to say a special appreciation to Councilmember Juando. I don't think it's been the easiest time for you personally, over the past year and a half, as you have, been subject to a lot of antagonism for, being very vocal about these problems. And I appreciate your not backing down and continuing forward. And I'm glad we're going to be able to consider this legislation today. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I appreciate all the comments that have been made, and I'm really grateful to work with each of you on it. We're clearly at an inflection point right now, and I think this is really a really good example of channeling anger into action and being thoughtful and deliberative about how we move forward, recognizing that this is just one step, and there are a lot more efforts and there's a lot more work that is required. Particularly want to reiterate the gratitude of the co-leads. I don't want to get the framing, the co-sponsors versus co-leads. I always mix that up. But the co-leads who are really leading the way on this particular issue, Councilmembers Juando and Rice and Navarro and Albornoz, and appreciate the fact this is a full council effort, but led by the four of you. I think both of those things are important for different reasons, and I wanted to highlight and note both of them because I do think that it matters. And just pleased to be a part of this work. There'll be time to fully flesh out and discuss and deliberate on some of the specifics in it. There's some key elements to this legislation which are really important, as Councilmember Juando went through and highlighted in the beginning, and this is part of the work that we have to take on, and we have to do it with urgency, but be deliberate about it. And it's hard to balance that, to move forward with the pace that residents are demanding and deserve, but to make sure that we're doing it in a thoughtful way and in a collaborative way, in a way that actually addresses the issues for the long term. So I appreciate that work on this, look forward to more efforts, and I'm grateful to be able to be part of this body at this really critical moment in our county, in our community, and in our country.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Today's been a long day, and I think I was probably right to cancel the interviews. By the way, we'd have just been starting them right now, and that somehow would not have been the best idea. But today has been a long day, but my goodness, it's been a successful day. Today has been a day that we've done a lot of good things. We've had a lot of emotion, some of which just is coming on right now. And I sincerely appreciate everybody's work on this. We're gonna get there. It's, sometimes something that is really worth doing is not easy to do. But it is absolutely the right thing to do, and that's exactly what we're doing today. So I thank each and every one of my colleagues and everyone who came out for the public hearing and all of our staff and everyone else to get us where we got at the end of the day. But thank you very much for being here. And with that, we're going to. We still have other things to do. No, we don't. And with that, we are going to adjourn. Thank you very much. Good night. Good evening.
Curbside retail activity. The Bethesda Streetery program was conceived by the Bethesda Union Partnership and will be the first closure of this type